Let's get it. 580 Sports Talk on a Thursday afternoon on 580 WIBW FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com, and on our video stream. We are on YouTube. 580 Sports Talk is the channel. We are on Facebook streaming as well, WIBW News. The gang's all here. Dan Lucero, Brendan Wrzinski, Spencer Dupuis, together again for the first time in what feels like a while. It's great to be with you. Thank you for hanging out with us. Thanks for making us a part of your Thursday afternoon here on 580 Sports Talk. We got a lot to talk about today. We got 3 hours in which to do it. Then we'll do a little overtime. And then we've got 580 Preps Thursday Night Football presented by Lewis Toyota tonight. Little Thursday Night Football from Hummer Sports Park, the final week of the high school football season. Can you believe we're already there?
That seems impossible.
I can't believe. I can't believe it's week 8. Absolutely cannot believe it. Rejecting it just out of hand.
You know, I used to always think when I was doing the, play-by-play for our high school games every week, I used to always think, gosh, this goes so quickly. Somehow this year it feels like it's gone even faster. I'm not sure how that's possible.
Yeah, I can't really account for that, but no, I'm right there with you. I am right there with you. Anyway, it is week 8, the final regular season week of high school football, and we've got Thursday Night Football for you from Hummer Sports Park. Meadowlark Conference action, the Highland Park Scots taking on the Washington Wildcats. Our first look at the Scots this season on our 580 Preps high school football coverage. Spencer Dupuis on the play-by-play, yours truly on the color analysis. Pre-game starting at around 6:30. We'll have the kickoff at 7 right here on 580 WIBW FM 104.9. And in these intervening 3 hours, it is a jam-packed show, as it always is on Thursday. 3 great guests that we will bring you on today's program. Bottom of the 3 o'clock hour, Rick Peterson of TopSports.News for the Lewis Toyota Local Sports Spotlight. We'll talk about state championships for Hayden in girls tennis and girls golf, as well as other performances from around the area in those state events. Of course, we'll also look ahead to week 8 of the high school football season, including our Friday night Lewis Toyota 580 Preps game of the week. Seaman versus DeSoto. If the Vikings win, they are the outright United Kansas Conference champions. No tiebreaker needed. They'll have run the rack in one of the best 5A leagues in the state if they can defend their home turf and beat DeSoto in their finale. We'll have that on the air for you tomorrow night here on 580 WIBW and FM 104.9. We'll get a preview of that and all the other week 8 action with Pistol at the bottom of this hour. Bottom of the 4 o'clock hour, Paul Myerberg of USA Today will join us for the Big 12 football breakdown. Always enjoy hearing from Paul. We'll get his thoughts on the Sunflower Showdown, the teams at the top of the Big 12 conference, a look ahead to what we all knew would be the marquee matchup in the Big 12 this week. No, not the Sunflower Showdown. I'm sorry. I wish it were the marquee matchup, but Kansas is 2-5. It is what it is. The marquee matchup this week in the Big 12 is Colorado hosting Cincinnati.
See, here's the thing.
2 coaches I have never said anything bad about, Deion Sanders and Scott Satterfield.
It's
actually the opposite. I don't think I've ever said anything good about either guy.
It might literally be the matchup of the weekend in the Big 12. I refuse to acknowledge that as the premier game of the weekend in the Big 12. Like, I might spend the next 2 shows really hyping up UCF. Like, no, UCF upset bid against BYU. You heard it here first. I refuse to give that kind of credit to Scott Satterfield's Cincinnati team. I just can't do it.
No, I respect that.
I can't. Who would like to talk about Oklahoma State Baylor with me?
Nobody.
Yeah,
that's
true.
putrid.
Yeah, it's gross.
That is revolting.
That might be the dumpster juice pick of the week. You'll have to find out when we talk to Paul later, but there is convincing evidence that deserves a spot, at least on the podium, for the dumpster juice game of the week.
There's a lot of Big 12 dumpster juice this week, relatively speaking. Like West Virginia, Arizona is a very unpleasant football game.
Utah's going to beat Houston 9-2. No touchdown scored.
Hey, baseball season already? I know. The YouTube live chat is pointing out that it does not feel like it feels like summer more than it feels like fall. But I didn't know we were to baseball season already. Utah, Houston playing ball.
That's crazy. That's wild. That's a conference game now. That game's gonna suck. All these games are gonna suck, man. I'm looking at the schedule right now. Yuck.
So I'm telling you, Colorado, Cincinnati,
Texas Tech, TCU is gonna be like a meth head battle.
Mark Jones is running back a best of Snoop Dogg in 91 playlist to get some fresh references
Oh, God, is he doing the Colorado game?
You know he is.
No. Does he ask for that assignment every week? He's got to, right?
He is the official broadcaster of the Colorado Buffaloes.
Come on.
He got almost as much right to call himself the voice of that team. Yeah, it's Mark and Ronnie Jones.
Oh, you know who's got the Sunflower Showdown? I do.
Roy Philpott and Sam Acho.
Gross.
It's not what you want.
No.
I'm going to be in the booth. I won't hear either guy.
Well, lucky you.
At least better than Eric Collins. What's the Eric Collins?
Me too. I don't want to hear them.
Eric Collins this week.
Or is he back doing the
He's
Hornets?
with the Hornets. Yeah, he's not on a game this week.
Oh man.
Disaster.
That's too bad. We won't have another one of these this week.
Oh no! Disaster! What a bad idea!
I'm just happy you couldn't have played that on Tuesday because you wanted to play it on Tuesday, but we weren't here on Tuesday. We were at the burger stand.
I did. I want to play it all the time. I need a button in the booth that just plays that. Like I need one specific button in the studio.
All right, Roy,
the
let's get this button
disaster button. Yeah, we'll give Roy Baum right on that. I'm sure that's move that to the
top of mind,
top of his priority list. Anyhow, Paul Myerberg, bottom of the 4 o'clock hour, and Mitch Holthus, the voice of the Chiefs, will join us at 5:25 as he does every Thursday throughout the Chiefs season. We will get Mitch's thoughts on Raider Week, which still means something, even if the Raiders don't mean what they used to.
Yeah. Go ask Mitch if Raider Week means something, because he might spend the whole interview today just talking about how meaningful that game is.
It is amazing that as much damage as has been done to the Raiders brand over the course of, what are we working on now, 2 decades of irrelevant football, it still means a lot to the AFC West teams when it's Raider Week.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's still one of the games you circle on the schedule is when the Raiders are on the schedule, when the Raiders come to town, or when you go play the Raiders. That still means something to the fans. And I hope eventually that the Raiders return to some level of prominence where it will continue to mean something to our generation and younger generations of Chiefs fans, Broncos fans, Chargers. I almost said Chargers fans, like those exist. But you know what I mean, right? Like,
yeah.
The Raiders meant something for so long that Raider Week still means something years after the Raiders have meant anything.
Also, rivalries mean more and feel, and I bet K-State fans, you might disagree with me here, but rivalries mean more when it's not a given. Like when you go into a rivalry game and you don't just beat the other team, but you ruin their day or week or season, that's when that means something. That is when it really feels extra sweet. Like, for my favorite team, for example, Green Bay beats the Bears every single year. They've won 11 straight, is it now? 10 straight? It's crazy. The Bears are not even competitive in the series. But it's better to me when the Bears are at least competitive and competent, because then when the Packers win, it feels even better because I know that they, on the other side, are miserable.
Yes.
And I'm sure if you're a Chiefs fan, I mean, you're going to beat the Raiders anyway. Even if they're competent, you're going to beat them. It feels better to know, oh, Raiders, you're trying to make the playoffs, huh? Watch this.
Yeah.
Ha! And then you know Raiders fans are miserable. And I know you enjoy that.
Tyler points out in the YouTube live comments that the Raiders did ruin Christmas last year. Ooh, the comments look different.
That's
what
true.
Did we do? What do we do on the YouTube video? The stream. They look different now.
Do we like it or do we not like it?
Too squared.
It's fine. We go do it the old way. There we go.
You find it? Okay,
yeah,
good.
Yeah, we're good.
All
yeah,
right.
I like the red. Red's kind of our thing.
Yeah. No, I agree with that.
So that's a good point though. Like the last time that's the last time the Chiefs have lost.
Counterpoint: losing to the Raiders on Christmas last year, and Andy Reid will tell you this, was like getting coal, but that coal turned into a diamond.
This is true.
That's what got their ass in gear for the final stretch run last season.
This is true. That's a good point. That's a good point.
Silver linings.
Lots to talk about Chiefs related with Mitch Holthus. He'll join us in the 5 o'clock hour. Of course, we got lots more to get to, including DeAndre Hopkins, officially a Chief. He's in the building. Andy Reid talked about it today. We're going to play his comments here in just a bit. And we're talking about what things DeAndre Hopkins will add to this offense and whether or not the Chiefs should still be looking to add to their wide receiver room. Plus, because we did a bunch of DeAndre Hopkins on the show yesterday, and understandably so, We didn't get to as much Big 12 basketball as we thought we might. It was Big 12 men's basketball media day yesterday. Yours truly was in attendance and was able to report on that, bring you some audio from the T-Mobile Center. But some final thoughts, some final reaction from Big 12 basketball media day, a team we might think could be a surprise team in a good way or a bad way in the Big 12 this year. And the one thing I heard from a coach that I thought was the best thing I heard at the podium yesterday, and it came from Houston coach Kelvin Sampson. And I'm looking forward to playing it for you guys because I appreciate Kelvin Sampson. In a world where Tony Bennett quit his job 3 weeks before the start of the season, and the national college basketball media made a martyr out of him. Listen to what Kelvin Sampson has to say about what NIL has done to his job, or more notably, what he won't let it do to his job. And I think you'll have a renewed appreciation for the guys who are sticking it out instead of the guys who are quitting because it's too hard in the NIL world. Bunch of wieners out there. You know who's a real man? Kelvin Sampson. That's right. I called Tony Bennett a wiener.
My wife once referred to Kelvin Sampson as that one coach with the beady little eyes, which is all I think about when I see him now.
I've done such a 180 on Kelvin Sampson over the years. I'm a huge fan of his now.
I've shared this before. My best friend, who's a Wisconsin fan now because that's where he went to school, he grew up a huge Indiana fan. His parents met at Indiana. Loved he would on big game days, he'd rock the candy stripe pants to school.
Love that.
Loved Indiana. Hates Kelvin Sampson's guts.
Understandable.
Hates him and always will.
I was going to college in the state of Indiana when Kelvin Sampson was the coach at IU. So I get it. And that's kind of where some of my opinions about Sampson were formed, but I've done a 180. I've done a complete 180 over the years on Kelvin Sampson. So we'll get to that. We'll have 2 new stories on what is wrong with you. We got sports headlines at the 5 o'clock hour. Either or over under. Lots of great stuff. We're glad you're with us on this Thursday edition of 580 Sports Talk. Hit us up on the Top City Metal Supply text line, 785-272-9429. And you can also interact, as some of you already are, in the live chat feature on our YouTube stream. Again, the channel is 580 Sports Talk. Jump in, interact with your fellow listeners, interact with your hosts throughout the day. We appreciate seeing you watching live on the YouTube stream. All right, DeAndre Hopkins, he's in the building. He's in red. He's wearing number 8 because he's always wanted to wear number 8 because he just loves Kobe Bryant.
Did you hear his rationale for wearing number 8? He loves Kobe Bryant, but he said that's similar reasoning to why he wanted to wear 10, like Messi, his favorite soccer player, who was an underdog, just like him. DeAndre, you were a big-time recruit, a massive star in college football, and a first-round pick, brother. I get that you need motivation, but dude, maybe not quite there.
Wearing Kobe Bryant's number 8 that he used to wear when he soared through the air like a bird of prey, particularly when he played games against the Denver Nuggets in their home gym. For more, Google Kobe Bryant, Eagle, Colorado. Anyway,
I would have worn 24 personally. Although, no, you can't wear 24. That's Sky Moore's number.
Yeah,
heartbreaking.
Sky Moore's number. There is Sky Moore news today. He's on the IR. He was placed on the IR with a core muscle injury, which frankly sounds a little bit made up, but that's neither here nor there. The roster spot that was Sky Moore's is now DeAndre Hopkins. That's what we call a glow up. Andy Reid, coach of the Chiefs, spoke earlier today. This is a portion of his remarks. Might be all of his remarks, to be honest with you, because all he was doing up there at the podium today was talking about DeAndre Hopkins. So here's what the head coach of the Chiefs has to say about Hopkins' fit as a Chief.
Andy, obviously he's been a good player over the years, but other than that, is there something specifically that he does well that you feel like you guys have maybe been lacking?
Well, I think not necessarily lacking, but I think he's a good he's a veteran player and seen just about everything over 12 years. So and he's a good space player. So he's very good understanding how to work in space. At the same time, he's a tough matchup because of his size, arm length, big body that knows how to kind of play that low post area very well.
How about a timetable for him playing?
Well, it could be this weekend. We'll see how he picks up. I've got to get him on the practice field. But why wait, right? If he can handle it without putting him in a bad position.
And related to that, I think Justin Reed used the term that he has a master's class in football. His knowledge is deep and he'll pick up things fast. How much are you already aware of that? And and what will that mean in this process?
Yeah, he's a smart guy, and he understands football likewise. And Justin knows him probably better than anybody. Just haven't been with him for those years. So that's exciting. I mean, that's a good thing. We've got a lot in right now, and we're just trying to get him acclimated with meetings here. We'll see how things go at practice, but you can tell he's a very focused guy, and he's intelligent. So,
reasonably speaking, how many additional hours would it be for Hopkins this week? Like shorter menu? How does that process work?
Well, you start kind of from the bottom of just the snap count part of it, and work your way up through. But he's seen enough. He's been around it long enough to where it's more a dialect than a language. So, that he has to learn.
Last year, we're going to add him in the same. We don't.
Andy, are you done at wide receiver? I mean, the deadline's still a couple weeks away. Do you guys have anything else going there?
Only if you want to jump in and take a few reps.
Sam?
And he does some stuff that maybe isn't what you guys currently have on the roster as far as planning traffic. I just wonder, is that something that you guys need to adjust if it is skill set, or do you want him to more adjust to what you guys are already doing well?
No, listen, we do this all, but we try to utilize their strengths and work them in to what we do without completely changing everything. I mean, we've got a little of everything in the offense. So, but he's similar in being able to, his awareness in spaces Juju and Rashid was developing into. So, and that's a good thing in this offense to be able to do.
So that was Andy Reid earlier today talking about the addition of DeAndre Hopkins. And you hear him mention at the beginning and also at the end, last question from Sam McDowell, the Kansas City Star, that Hopkins' ability to find space and work space is similar to what Rashee Rice had been developing skill-wise, to what Juju Smith-Schuster can do. And those are things, obviously, that the Chiefs value and get a lot of use out of in their offense. I also think that can't be the only way they plan to use DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah. I agree with you on that, but I also wonder, especially early on, if you just you play to the strengths. You play the hits with him. That Andy Reid's right. It's more of a dialect than a new language that he's got to learn in this offense. And I think that's true. You were saying that just the other day, Dan. Like, maybe it was even yesterday in the show. Like, this is an all-pro. This is a borderline Hall of Famer playing and catching passes with a guy who will be on the Mount Rushmore of greatest quarterbacks of all time someday. And Patrick Mahomes, like, he'll figure it out. He'll be fine. But I do think at least early on, you probably just say, dude, go dunk. Go catch those balls off the rim and put them back. Like, we're looking for Ernest Uday minutes out of you right now. Like, you're going to run rim to rim and you're going to go up and dunk it. Like, that's all you're going to do at this point. And I don't really think that that's a problem for this Chiefs offense, because outside of that, give me a notable skill for any other wide receiver on the Chiefs. Like an actual plus skill.
Xavier Worthy's speed is double plus.
Okay.
That's all I have for you.
Yeah, that's it. Sky Moore's best speed or best trait before he went on IR was that I bet you he was so good at running on the treadmill. Like, that, you've got nothing. Justin Watson, nice guy. Like, that's what we're talking about with this wide receiver core. So especially in a game against the Raiders, whose defense is not as good as it was expected to be, and it shouldn't have been expected to be that good anyway, but that's neither here nor there. Just play the hits. Just play in traffic. That's fine. Not normally something I would advocate for, but in this instance, I think you can win that way. And if you're only running hitches and goes with DeAndre Hopkins and you're just going to end up winning in that way, that's fine for this week. Wait for the more important games down the line for when you need to get him a little bit more involved in the deeper route tree. Like against Tampa Monday next week, even got the extra day to practice. Okay, yeah, you probably want a little bit more because some of those guys in that secondary can really play for Tampa Bay. You go down a little bit further along the schedule, like when you play the Bills in a couple of weeks, yeah, you want him to be able to do everything out of a guy of that kind of caliber. But like right now, just throw the ball up. There's DeAndre down there somewhere. That's all I need if I'm the Chiefs right now.
3 ways in particular I think Hopkins is going to make this offense better. Number 1 is the red zone. What plays in the red zone? Ability to make contested catches, ability to win on goal line fades. The one touchdown that Hopkins had this year, I know you saw it, Brendan, because it was against Packers. It was a route to the sidelines, essentially a fade, didn't get all the way to the end zone, but it was essentially a fade that Levis threw to the front pylon. And DeAndre Hopkins is a lot bigger than Eric Stokes. And he caught that ball on Eric Stokes, and he spun through Eric Stokes and walked into the end zone, even though there was a second defender coming to try and tackle him before the goal line. It was extremely routine, and he can do that to just about any cornerback he wants to do it to. That element has been missing in the red zone this season. It has limited the Chiefs' effectiveness in the red zone this season. I don't love goal line fades, but it's nice to be able to throw one to a guy who's going to catch it.
At the 33rd Team FB on Twitter, they posted some stats about Nuke Hopkins in the red zone since he came into the league in 2017. The picture of it is Xavier McKinney and Eric Stokes on the ground as Hopkins hauls in a touchdown pass. It's funny, most because the Packers won that game. In the red zone since 2017, 8th most targets, 18th highest number of catches, 12th in receiving yards, 9th in touchdowns. Pretty good. Especially when you consider that a lot of red zone weapons are not necessarily guys who are great weapons between the 20s. And some guys who you would think of as great red zone weapons are not. You know who was never useful in the red zone? Julio Jones, who for 2 or 3 seasons was probably indisputably the best wide receiver in the NFL.
But he would never catch touchdowns.
No. For some reason, the best wide receiver in the NFL became a decoy inside the 20. It was bizarre.
His numbers were so funny.
Wasn't there one year where he only had 1 touchdown?
I'm looking up his numbers right now. He had a year where he had 88 catches and 3 touchdowns.
That's crazy. Truly crazy. 2021, one of his years with Tennessee, he had 1 touchdown, 31 catches, 1 touchdown. That's nuts for a guy who was as good as Julio Jones. Oh, by the way, I was just mentioning Julio Jones for a while, best wide receiver in the league. Fewer all-pros first team than DeAndre Hopkins has, which is remarkable. So he's a legitimate weapon in the red zone. I am not going to lie, with a healthy Isaiah Pacheco, I want to run, what would that be? 13 personnel, 1 running back, 3 tight ends, 1 wide receiver. Give me Pacheco as the single back. Give me Jody Fortson, Travis Kelce, Noah Gray, DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah.
Go stop that just behemoths, golems all over the field.
You're not stopping that 4 times inside the 5.
No.
You're not.
No, you get 4 chances at that. There's popcorn just popping all over the place. Let's try Noah. Let's try DeAndre.
So that's one way. Red zone. Red zone offense gets better with DeAndre Hopkins. Second way, you open up the field for your speed yakka guys, which you have now a bunch of. The Chiefs, I've always been kind of lousy with those guys. But that opens up the middle of the field. That opens things up for Juju when he gets back healthy. It certainly, I think, opens some more things up on crossing routes for the likes of Xavier Worthy and McCole Hardman.
Great take.
And the last thing that this does, it makes Patrick Mahomes better, because it's people in these streets who are saying that Patrick Mahomes is no longer the best quarterback in the National Football League. And by people in these streets, I mean The Ringer. The Ringer does their quarterback rankings every week. And this week, for the first time in literally 2 years, they have someone not named Patrick Mahomes ranked as the best quarterback in the NFL. And look, Lamar Jackson is balling out. That is indisputable. He is playing, once again, at an MVP level. He's not better than Patrick Mahomes. If we're talking about other guys being better than Patrick Mahomes, that doesn't compute with me. We know who Mahomes is. We know what he's capable of at his best. And now you've gotten him a bona fide future Hall of Fame weapon. You're going to get better football out of your best player as a result. That is a force multiplier for the rest of your team and for the rest of your offense.
I agree with you. I have no dispute over that whatsoever. I think he's going to be the safety blanket for Patrick Mahomes at this point. I really do. Because Kelce can't, right this second, Kelce can't do the Kelce things like he used to. The big play Kelce things. Let's put it at that. Get open on 3rd and 3, get 4 yards and move the sticks. Yes, we saw that this past weekend. And Travis Kelce can absolutely still do that with his, 4 catches for 17 yards. Yeah, different kind of Kelce things now. He's getting you first downs, but in different situations. I think anything beyond about 10 yards downfield, Hopkins is the safety blanket now. I do not think it's going to take all that long for the two of them to mesh, because even if you're not getting perfect precision passes from Mahomes, Hopkins can go catch those, man. He had 1,000 yards last year catching passes from Will Levis.
Yeah. Now he gets to play with the best.
Yeah.
So yeah, it makes everybody better. It elevates this offense in a big way. But should the Chiefs be done adding at wide receiver? Andy Reid seemed to indicate they would be, but should they be? We'll discuss that next. We got Rick Peterson coming up bottom of the hour as well. That's all coming up in this first hour of 580 Sports Talk on 580 WIBW. .335 on 580 Sports Talk. Dan, Brendan, Spencer. Coming up in just a moment, we'll have Rick Peterson of TopSports.News. Vahe Gregorian of the Kansas City Star, I believe, was the one who asked Andy Reid during the his press conference today. We played it just a little bit ago about whether or not the Chiefs were done adding at wide receiver. And Andy Reid told him, not only if you don't want to come out and run some routes, essentially. Basically telling Vahe, yeah, if you want to come play, sure. But here's the thing.
I'd love to see Vahe run like a sluggo. I'd love to see it.
I didn't realize I was taller than he was. I'm not very tall. It's not a big deal. Like most of us in sports media are in sports media because we're not 6'7", right?
Right.
Like we're not built like NFL wide receivers. But no, Vahe's the slot guy for sure.
Yeah.
He's coming out of the slot. Anyway, Sky Moore goes on the IR today. So your wide receivers right now, as it currently stands, you've got DeAndre Hopkins, Juju Smith-Schuster, Justin Watson, McCole Hardman, Xavier Worthy. Not necessarily in that order, but those are your 5 wide receivers right now. Juju's not healthy. DeAndre Hopkins has a bit of a knee issue that he's been working through this year. And it's just kind of playing through.
Uh-huh.
Do you think the Chiefs do need one more guy? Because we had talked about Demarcus Robinson doing like a late day 3 conditional pick for Demarcus Robinson if the Rams are selling, and it looks like they are. Like, I would still do that. I would still bring him in just to have another guy on hand and to make sure you never have to reactivate Sky Moore.
So here's the issue with that. If you go to Spotrac and use their cap information, the Chiefs are currently $100,000 over the cap as it stands right now. So they've already got to do something to create a little space. They might be able to do something procedurally, even with that Sky Moore deal, with him going on IR to make this happen. So they've already got to do something, move a few bucks around to clear some space. And you might say, oh, well, that doesn't seem that bad. Well, if you go to a different source to check in on cap space and you try overthecap.com, they've got the Chiefs at $2.4 million over the cap right now. So they have to make like a real move. They've got to add a void year for someone or convert some money into signing bonus. They got to do something there.
Yeah, teams do that all the time. Even $2.4 million is a rounding error.
No, you can make it happen. Demarcus Robinson is owed, I believe I checked, about actually $2.4 million the rest of this season, prorated for he'll play tonight. Obviously, he will not be moved today. He is currently getting ready to take on the Minnesota Vikings. I mean, I wouldn't hate adding a player like that. He's actually played pretty well for the Rams, all things considered. I'd like to add someone. I just don't know who or what that would be at this point. I don't think it's impossible that the Rams upset the Vikings and then don't sell.
Interesting.
Flip side, if they do lose tonight to the Vikings, it might be fire sale time.
Liquidation time. Yeah. Everything must go. Yeah, I think they could stand to add. I do. I still feel a lot better about this receiving core if you had one more reliable body, because I just don't think I like what Juju brings. How many games is he going to bring it for is a big question, because when he's not in there, then you're still working with Justin Watson and Xavier Worthy as wide receivers 2 and 3. And I still don't think that's quite good enough, especially with a diminished Travis Kelce. We'll take a break. We're going to talk to Rick Peterson of TopSports.News for the Lewis Toyota Local Sports Spotlight next on 580 Sports Talk. We are joined by the great Rick Peterson of TopSports.News for the Lewis Toyota Local Sports Spotlight here on 580 Sports Talk. Pistol covers all things Shawnee County High School sports and Washburn University athletics at TopSports.News. You can follow him on Twitter at Peterson_Rick. And Pistol, there's some state gold coming back to the capital city, courtesy of some Hayden Lady Wildcats. Let's start on the Lynx. Hayden Golf bringing home a state championship and always in the mix, but this year's team able to pull out a very competitive state tournament this year.
Yeah, in fact, 2 years in a row. So it's a great repeat for Hayden. They won by 15 strokes. They'd only led by 4 after the first day, but that put them in a good position, and then they finished it off on Tuesday.
So congratulations due to Hayden Girls Golf. Also, Hayden Girls Tennis. We knew they had a really good shot at bringing home a state championship. Ainsley Zululeta, the state champion for a third time in her career in #1 singles, but the rest of the team also rising to the occasion.
Yeah, and they won it pretty easily. I mean, 40-28, I believe, was the final, and that's pretty decisive in tennis. So Zululeta, she just continues to amaze me. She went through the whole postseason without dropping a game.
Whoa.
So that's 8 straight postseason matches that went 6-0, 6-0. And that's just amazing. You think it's somewhere along the line you just kind of foul up one game, a double fault, or hit a ball out of bounds or something like that. But she was just a machine.
So state championships for Hayden in girls golf and in tennis, girls tennis as well. But let's recognize some of the other area athletes with good showings in state events this past week. State golf, Silver Lake, a runner-up finish on a tiebreaker in 3A, 1A, and Washburn Rural, another great season for them, a third-place finish as well. It felt like Washburn Rural was kind of under the radar a bit this year at times, but they're always competitive when the state title rounds roll along.
Yeah, they were under the radar a little bit, but Coach Goring was just really, really happy with with the way they played both days at state, and it was a tournament that got pushed back a little bit because of some weather. So, but they handled it all very, very good, and it speaks well for the Centennial League because Manhattan ran away with the title. So that speaks very good for the area in golf. And then I just said, my heart goes out to Silver Lake. I mean, they lose on a fifth player, second round tiebreaker. And, I mean, I don't think they'll ever do that, but you almost wish they could have Coach Epps because they put themselves in a great position and it just didn't happen for them.
Over in tennis, mentioned Hayden's state championship and Ainsley Zululeta's singles championship in Class 4A, along with an outstanding performance from the rest of her teammates. A great year for Seaman tennis as well, third at state, and another good run for Washburn Rural as well. Their doubles team of Emery Catlin and Isabel Haggard won all the local titles, city, league, regional titles. They were 9th at state as well. So a really nice year for that contingent, and Seaman as a team, especially great year for them.
Yeah. And you know, the thing about going back to Hayden real quickly, they swept city, Centennial League, regional, and state, which is very hard to do. Seaman won. You finished second in the city, but then they had perfect team scores in the UKC meet and the regional meets, which is very hard to do. And Emma Sweeney, sophomore, finished 4th to lead them at state. And then, like you said, Washburn Rural's doubles team won, swept city, league, and regional, and had a very good weekend, or a very good weekend at state.
Rick Peterson of TopSports.News is our guest. This is the Lewis Toyota Local Sports Spotlight here on 580 Sports Talk. We do it every Thursday at this time. Pistol, it seems hard to believe, but it is the final week of the regular season for high school football, and the action begins tonight with Highland Park taking on Kansas City, Washington in a Meadowlark Conference game. And while Atchison has proven to be the bully on the block in that new league that is only 3 years old, Highland Park and Washington have played some really competitive games as being league members, and I would expect another one tonight.
Yeah, I would too. And there's, seeding is very much in play in this one. And both teams are trying to wrap up home berths, at least for the first round, maybe for a couple rounds. And so it's very big in that regard. And Washington got them last year. One of their only 2 regular season losses. So I think the Scots will be fired up. I'm going to have Todd Fertig out there for us, and he'll do a great job. And I want to keep an eye on that one.
Our coverage of that game tonight here on 580 WIBW FM 104.9 will start with pregame coverage approximately 6:30, and then the kickoff from Hummer Sports Park at 7. Our Friday night Lewis Toyota 580 Preps game of the week, DeSoto taking on Seaman. Seaman can win an outright conference championship with a win over the Wildcats. Pistol, do you remember when the last time Seaman won an outright conference football championship?
No, I do not. And of course, they changed leagues, so
right.
That comes into play too. But no, I do not. Let's just say it's been a while, and that game tomorrow night. I mean, that's one of the biggest games of the year in my mind. Again, both teams will want to cement their seeding and get some momentum for going on to the postseason. If Seaman gives up 69 points, was that what that Heights game was, Dan? 69-57?
Yeah, 69-57 was the final in that one.
If Seaman gives up 69 points tomorrow night, they'll lose. But I don't see that happening. So I think it'll be a very, very good game that goes down to the end.
I'm doing some digging here. It looks like Seaman won an outright Centennial League title in 2003 when Bill Lowe was their head coach, and shared it in 2006. The great McPhee Sports website, still on the web, has some of that old Centennial League info. So that's what I can find. 2003, last outright league title for the Seaman Vikings.
So a full 21 years.
Yeah, that would be something else. They could accomplish that tonight.
Yeah.
And other matchup of some intrigue this week in the area, Washburn Rural at Manhattan. Rural shut out last week against Junction City, so they're in need of a bounce back against a Manhattan team that is 7-0.
Yeah, Manhattan's really, really good, and they're really, really good at home. So it's going to be a tough battle for Rural, but I think Rural wants to give themselves a chance while also just kind of getting things polished up for postseason. Because I still think Rural can. I wouldn't want to draw Rural if I'm one of the higher seeds. I just wouldn't want to draw them, and I think they could still do some damage in the postseason.
Rick Peterson is joining us on 580 Sports Talk via the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline for our local sports spotlight, brought to you by Lewis Toyota. Pistol, real quick, from high school to Washburn Athletics. We said it last week on the show. It was a must-win game for Craig Schurig's Ichabods, and they went out and hammered Missouri Southern 42-21. That's got to feel good for that group, I imagine, to need a win that badly and then to just dominate your opponent for 60 minutes.
Yeah, and they played like it was a must-win game because they just came out right away and took control. And, they haven't been their performances at home, but haven't been winning at home. So that was really good for them to be able to do that in front of their home fans, too.
So this weekend, it's a trip to Warrensburg to take on the Mules of Central Missouri. And we know, even though it's maybe not as good of a UCM team as it was last year, they can put up points, and they can put up a lot of them and put them up in a hurry. I imagine this is the kind of game that Washburn would love to shorten, keep the ball on the ground, limit number of possessions, don't make it into a shootout kind of game. Do you think the Washburn running game is playing well enough to make that happen?
I think they are, but the other thing about that is they can do some short passes, some misdirection stuff with Trey Richardson and things like that. I think the book's open, Brendan. Anything that they can do to move the ball and hang on to the ball, I think they'll do. Especially on the road, you got to take some chances, and I think they will.
I have to make sure to ask you a basketball question as well, Pistol, because Washburn men's basketball plays in 5 days. They will be on the road in Lawrence for an exhibition game taking on KU. Let's start with the men. We'll get to the women here in a moment because they'll play next Wednesday as well. This men's team, I know we talked about it when the preseason poll came out, but I really think they've got NCAA tournament potential and maybe the potential to make a deep run. This is a deep and really talented team for Brett Ballard.
Yes, and I think they'll go out and are they going to win at Allen Fieldhouse? Probably not. But I think they'll go out and expect to be competitive and go out and again, work on that. They'll be more worried about themselves getting ready for the regular season, because then they turn around and play like, two like top 5 teams up at the Municipal Auditorium. So it's good for them to get settled and get ready to go in a hurry.
Big tests early for Laura Westling's group as well. They will play 1 week from yesterday at K-State, and then the Washburn women will play at KU as well, coming up a week from tomorrow. I'm fascinated by this Washburn women's team this year, Pistol, because you lose a player like Aubrey Dewey, among others, who graduated from the program, but someone who was so good for so long. You bring in a bunch of freshmen, a handful of transfers as well. I'm interested to see how they gel early in the season.
I do. I'm very interested, and I'm very kind of in the dark. I've talked to Laura and all that, but until I see them, I just don't know exactly what to think, and I'm really eager to see them. I know the one transfer comes in that hit, like 93s or something last year. I want to see her, and I think they're going to be better. Without seeing them, I'll go that far and said I think they'll be better than last year's team that won 13 games, 14 games. So I think they'll improve.
Rick Peterson of TopSports.News joins us every Thursday on this program for the Lewis Toyota Local Sports Spotlight. Read all the coverage of local high school athletics and Washburn athletics at TopSports.News, with football coverage, sub-state volleyball coverage, and, of course, the all-city teams in girls golf and girls tennis on the website, TopSports.News. Pistol, it's always a pleasure. We'll talk to you next week.
All right.
That is Rick Peterson. We'll take a break, come back, wrap up the hour, 580 Sports Talk. Quick either or over under to wrap up this 3 o'clock hour 580 Sports Talk. Over under 3.5 receptions for DeAndre Hopkins on Sunday against the Raiders.
Over.
I've been actually thinking about this in my head. I don't know. I'll take the over, though.
I think they target him a bunch, and I think they target him a bunch early.
Just to get him in the flow.
Yep.
Yeah.
Almost.
Feels like such an Andy Reid thing, right?
Yeah. I could see. I mean, look, they didn't waste a lot of time getting Kareem Hunt super involved.
Yep.
And he had at least some past familiarity with what the offense is like and some of the verbiage. But again, I don't think that's going to take that long for DeAndre Hopkins to figure it out.
I think it'll help with Xavier Worthy, though, if they target him. If they target Hopkins more, I think it helps Xavier Worthy in the end.
Give him some more opportunities.
I think they're going to hit on a big one to Worthy.
Yeah.
Maybe this week.
I hope so. I would like more of that. That's been the most fun the Chiefs offense has looked like all season.
I think they set up for it at least once a game. I think they're going to, I think they hit it this week. Coming up at the 4 o'clock hour, we're talking some Big 12 hoops. We got What Is Wrong With You and Paul Myerberg for the Big 12 football breakdown on 580 Sports Talk. Let's get it. Hour number 2, 580 Sports Talk on this Thursday afternoon. Unseasonably warm in the capital city. But we know you're cool because you're hanging out with us here on 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com, and on our video stream, the YouTube channel 580 Sports Talk, the Facebook page WIBW News. We've got you until 6 o'clock today. Then we got a little overtime, and then we got 580 Preps Thursday Night Football presented by Lewis Toyota as Highland Park hosts Washington in Meadowlark Conference play. Spencer Dupuis on the play-by-play, yours truly on the color. That is tonight, 7 o'clock kick down on Chuck Lauer Field here on 580 WIBW.
Hopefully the weather holds up.
How do you mean? Are we expecting?
I got in the car this morning and heard Dan Holliday letting me know that there was potential storms tonight between the 8 and 9 p.m. hour.
I don't really appreciate Dan Holliday saying that.
I literally turned on my car and that's what I heard. And I said, you've got to be kidding me.
So
I got 3 words for you. Actually, make it 4. Run the damn ball. Keep it on the ground. Yep. Keep the clock running.
If it's windy and it's rainy, run the ball. Both teams like to do that. We will be looking forward to bringing you that action tonight.
Spencer, you are lucky to get to work here and be here in an era in which Highland Park football is awesome. They put up a bunch of points, put up a bunch of stats. They are a blast to watch. They are great. And it is such a awesome time to follow that program after a very challenging 7 years, was it? 6 years without a win?
6, 7, it was in that neighborhood.
Yeah, it was 50-plus games.
I think I remember talking about this with you guys.
And what Jermaine Monroe has done with that program and the players buying in and the numbers they've got on their roster now, it's awesome. I truly am so happy for that community and for that team that they are now a legit force to be reckoned with. And this game tonight should be great. I'm super excited for this one tonight.
Yeah, I think there will be a lot of running. There'll probably be a lot of getting out of the pocket because 29 sacks for Washington as a team coming in 7 games.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah.
That is a large number.
Yeah, that's a much improved Washington program. And it's going to be a competitive game tonight. Looking forward to a competitive 48 minutes of football at Hummer Sports Park.
That's 10 more sacks than Highland Park has.
That is a lot more sacks. Still to come on the program today. 2 great guests, 1 down. Thanks to Rick Peterson for joining us in the 3 o'clock hour. 2 more great guests still to come. Paul Myerberg at the bottom of this hour for the Big 12 football breakdown. And Mitch Holthus, the voice of the Chiefs, joins us at 5:25. We've also got another round of What is Wrong with You to come, our sports headlines to come as well, including one of the more relatable headlines that I've seen from the sports world. A guy who thought he could get a day off of work just showing up for jury duty, and then he ended up getting seated. Only thing is, this time, this guy plays in the National Football League. So
really funny.
Yeah, but does he really need to practice a lot? Like, that's a position where you don't have to actively. You could go kick it at 9 o'clock at night.
I mean, I can't say because I guess I don't know. I've never done it.
Yeah, I've never been an NFL kicker. I've never been an anything kicker.
I heard on a podcast today. I think it might have been the Mina Kimes show, her Week 8 preview with Mike Golick Jr. when he said, "This is how you know that things are not all rosy for the Dallas Cowboys. Because if they were winning and the vibes were high in Dallas right now, Jerry Jones would pull every string needed to make sure Brandon Aubrey was at practice."
Right.
But the fact that they can't get out of jury duty and he plays for the Cowboys and he's their one reliable player, things are bad in Dallas.
So we'll get to all of that coming up. We'll also talk a little Big 12 basketball this hour. Invite you to be a part of the conversation if you're watching live on YouTube. Again, the channel is 580 Sports Talk. There is a live chat feature. It's a great way to be involved in the show, interact with other listeners, and, of course, with your hosts throughout the program. You can also hit us up on the Top City Metal Supply text line. That is wide open to you as well. That number is 785-272-9429 for the Top City Metal Supply text line. No more wasting money on metal pieces that leave you with unnecessary leftovers. Top City Metal Supply cuts exact lengths of aluminum, steel, and stainless steel tailored to your project's specifications. Start optimizing your budget with Top City Metal Supply on South Topeka Boulevard, just north of Forbes Field. 785-272-9429. We didn't get to a lot of basketball yesterday, or at least as much as we thought we were going to. Obviously, we had plenty of audio from Big 12 Men's Basketball Media Day yesterday. You heard from Jerome Tang. You heard from Bill Self. You heard from the player contingents from both Kansas and Kansas State. And in a minute, I'm going to play a clip from Kelvin Sampson that I think is a must listen. And the best thing I heard yesterday from any coach at the podium, and one of the best things I've heard from a college basketball coach who, in this new era of NIL and the transfer portal, says, yeah, bring it on. And I appreciate that a great deal about a coach like Kelvin Sampson. The preseason Big 12 poll has Kansas as the favorite to win the Big 12. Not by much over Houston. They got 4 more first-place votes, and those extra points were the difference in the poll. Kansas got 215 voting points. Houston got 211. So that's how slim the margins are up top, at least in the public opinion, between Kansas and Houston. Iowa State 3rd, Baylor 4th, Arizona 5th, Cincinnati, Texas Tech, K-State rounding out the top half. Then BYU 9th, TCU 10th, UCF, Arizona State, West Virginia, Oklahoma State, Colorado, and Utah at number 16. After looking at this, having a chance to sit with this, having a chance to hear from the coaches, talk to some of the coaches, see some of the players at Big 12 Basketball Media Day yesterday, I am of the mind that those teams in the middle, you could really order, I think, 6 through 9 in any order you wanted to. Cincinnati, Texas Tech, K-State, BYU. You could tell me any one of those teams was 6 and any one of those teams was 9, and I'd probably buy it. I think that there is a pretty clear top 5 in this league and then a very clear next 4 in this league, and then everybody else is kind of fighting for 10th place and hoping to get a tournament bid. I think it's possible. I think there could be. I'll start there. Brendan, how many teams do you think are going to the tournament out of this league? Do you think it's realistic 10, maybe even 11 teams could go to the NCAA tournament?
I think 11 is going to be difficult. I think 10 is doable. I think 11 is going to be tough. Somebody is going to have guys get injured. Somebody is going to have a down year below expectations, because you can make an argument all the way down the list, save for Utah and probably Colorado, that, hey, I could see them make a run. Like Oklahoma State, Steve Lutz, brand new team, total overhaul after Mike Boynton just floundered there for years and years. It felt like, I don't know. If you're really high on Steve Lutz, maybe you just are a believer in what he did at Western Kentucky and that he can carry it over quickly to Oklahoma State. West Virginia, I like Darian DeVries. I like his son Tucker a whole lot even more than that. He's going to be one of the best players in the Big 12 this year.
Yes, he is.
And they're picked to finish 13th. Could you squint and see it with West Virginia? Yeah, I could. Arizona State, they've recruited really well as of late. Now, for what it's worth, I think Bobby Hurley is an awful coach. Like, I don't really think he knows what's happening on the sideline. And, Brendan, didn't he beat KU twice? Yes, he did. Congratulations to him winning 2 meaningful games in his career. I don't really think he knows what he's doing on the court. I think his brother got the coaching acumen. That being said, could you argue with the talent they've brought in recruiting-wise that they could make a push for a play-in game spot? Sure you could. UCF, you could do the same thing. TCU, probably too good for that, but they've turned that roster over a bunch, more and more every year, it feels like. But Jamie Dixon's got a certain baseline of quality you always expect from the Frogs. And up from there, I think probably everybody makes it in. BYU, K-State, Texas Tech, Cincinnati, and on up to that top 5 you were talking about. So I think 10 is more likely than 11, but I think 11 is more likely than 9, if that makes sense.
I get what you're saying. I really have to squint to see it for West Virginia and Oklahoma State, unless DeVries and Lutz are that good.
I guess that's my point. Like, are they probably going to do it? No, but could you at least envision a world in which, yeah, they're red hot because it's brand new? Yeah, I could see it.
And you never know. Like, the other thing that we're going to see this year, and we were already starting to see it in football, like the unbalanced schedule is going to play a role.
Yes, it will.
In who puts together, like, you might not have as strenuous a schedule, and you might go 12-8 in the league, and maybe you only had to play Kansas once and you got them at home. You have to play Kansas twice. You have to play Houston twice. You have to play Arizona twice. and you end up with a favorable draw, and you go 12-8 and win 20 games in the regular season. All of a sudden, you're in the tournament, and that might be best case scenario for those teams closer to the bottom. I'll say this about Kansas State. After listening to Jerome Tang, after seeing that they have gotten enough or are intrigued enough by some of their lesser heralded transfers, like Doug McDaniel's a big deal transfer.
Yep.
Coleman Hawkins is a big deal.
Yep.
And Chor was a pretty big deal. And Ugonna Onyenso is a big deal, and not just because he's tall, but like
Housen had some real attention.
Yeah, Brendan Housen did too because he came from Villanova. But like the Joneses, Max and CJ Jones, the fact that Max Jones was at Media Day says to me he's going to be a factor. Like they like him on the court, they like him off the court. He's going to be a factor.
Yeah.
If they've got like a bunch of playable guys, because last year they didn't really have a lot of playable guys. If they've got playable guys and they're guys who look like studs end up being studs, or at least close to the best versions of themselves, Kansas State's going to be a lot closer to the top of this league than they're going to be at the bottom. And we'll look back at them being 8th in the preseason poll and go, wait a minute, how did we miss this? Like, I think they're closer to being a top 5 team than they are being a bottom 6 or 7 team in the league. Just on talent and the fact Jerome Tang has done this before. Jerome Tang has built the culture with a turned over roster before. I don't think they're a threat to win the league. It will be stunning if that collection of talent doesn't make the tournament. And I think they're going to be a thorn in everybody's side.
How close is this to the 22-23 roster? All things considered.
So they're going to be better in the front court than that team was.
Yeah.
They're going to be better at the 5 and at the 4. And Keontae Johnson played a little 4, but they're going to be a lot better in the front court. They should have more shooting. That was not a great shooting team. It was a volume 3-point shooting team. Marquise Noel would shoot it at will, but he was only like a 34% 3-point shooter. So I think they'll have better shooting at the 1, the 2, and the 3. They play 3 guards. I think they'll have better shooting than that team did. But like, is there anybody on this team outside of Coleman Hawkins has like 3rd team All-America sort of upside, I think. That K-State team had 2 All-Americans. Like that was pretty special. So their high-end talent was really, really premium. In a way, I don't know if this Kansas State team has 2 All-Americans on it, but I think that they'll be deeper and that they'll have better shooting, and they might even take better care of the basketball. And that's a big, big deal after the last 2 years.
Yeah, that'd be significant. I think you can make an argument. Again, I mean, you can squint and see it. I pulled up the 22-23 K-State roster, and it also gave me the list of players who departed after the previous season. Horrible. Absolutely disgusting. Remember Mark Smith?
Yeah. He was like 24 years old and playing after a long career at Mizzou.
The number 1 KU hater on earth. Played at Illinois, Mizzou, and K-State. Just hated Kansas. Anywho, I think all things considered, this is probably a more talented roster, I think. But you're right. I mean, the top guys, you can cover a lot of holes when you've got 2 All-Americans. And when you had a guy like Marquise Noel, who was just untouchable. I mean, he was incredible that year. If you had told me that he would have even gotten a 2nd team over a 3rd team now, I don't think anyone would be super surprised with the benefit of hindsight. Keontae Johnson was obviously incredible that year. And on different nights, you could go to different guys and trust that they were going to go and make the right play. That Keontae Johnson mid-range turnaround fadeaway, I mean, that's an NBA kind of shot that he was so automatic with. Marquise Noel could just light it up from deep when he was on. The bad was pretty ugly, but the good, which happened more frequently, was great. I think, though, if you're just talking depth top to bottom, I think this is a better roster on paper. I don't know. That
deeper, and it is much better in the post.
I don't know.
As much as K-State wants to play through, I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, you're fine.
As much as K-State wants to play through the post, like the fact that they've got like guys they can play through in the post, whether it's a Chor or Hawkins. Like, I don't know if you can play through Onyenso in the post, but I don't think that's what he's there for. He's there to be the eraser. Like when he's playing, he's out there to block shots and rebound.
Yeah.
And be tall.
Yeah, and be bouncy, be a lob guy.
And that's fine. Like rim running bigs, like Gasson, same kind of thing. Like, I don't think you play through David Gasson, but he's out there for energy and for rebounding and rim running.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
But now they have some guys that have enough size that they can go down low. They can dump the ball into the block and have guys pass out of the block. Like, how many times did the ball go into Will McNair last year? And he was just a black hole. Like, it would never come out. If the ball goes into Coleman Hawkins in the block, he can feed a cutter. Like, it opens up the offense. Last year's offense didn't function. They didn't have a true point guard. They couldn't, their bigs couldn't pass. And the things that K-State wanted to do in the half court, they just couldn't do. They're going to be able to do those things this year in a similar vein to how they were able to do them in the Elite Eight year.
We're spending more time on K-State than I expected to, but I do have one more question about the Cats. And I want to ask you this because I'm looking at the roster right now. Realistically, how deep can this rotation be? Like, is it a 7-man rotation? Is it 8? Is it 9? I assume early in the year, Jerome, especially against this, frankly, abominable schedule that K-State has this year, I can see trying to get as many guys on the floor as many times as possible. I think the number hovers probably around 9. Again, just on paper and knowing what we know about some of these transfers, I would go with 9.
So they've got 14 on the roster. I don't think Moby Ike Garuka is going to play a lot. I don't think Spencer Bain obviously isn't going to play. I don't think there are a lot of minutes for Taj Manning. I don't know that there are a lot of minutes for Buddy Rich and Baye Fall. I think those are developmental guys. Still,
I agree with all 5
sophomores.
with you. Yeah.
So those are the 5 guys on the 14-man roster that I don't think are going to play a ton. So that leaves you a 9-player rotation.
The one other guy that I would question his usage is CJ Jones. I just don't know that he is going to be a key part of the rotation. Maybe he is. Maybe he surprises me. I liked the fit as depth. I don't like that fit nearly as much as if he's your 6th or 7th guy in the rotation. But
yeah, if he's your 9th guy, if he's your 9th guard, like,
yeah,
I don't know.
That's fine. I can live with that.
Yeah. You get somebody tweaks an ankle, has to sit a game. You can go to CJ Jones instead of.
You can't have 10 starters. You know,
right. No.
You got to have. If Max Jones gets in foul trouble, who are you going to play? Like that's what you do. That's what CJ Jones is there for.
Give me the one team, Brendan, you think is overrated in that preseason poll.
One team I think is overrated. Ooh.
I have 2 answers to that question. One, I'm not seeing it with Cincinnati. I like Wes Miller a lot, and they bring a lot back. I don't know that they have enough high-end guys.
Okay.
And TCU, to me, being 10th is high. Like, I think they could be. They're super young.
Yeah.
And I don't think you can be young in this league. I don't think in 2024-25 you can be young in the Big 12. I think they're going to take their lumps.
No, I think that's fair. If I had to give you one, I would probably go with Texas Tech. I like Grant McCasland, but I would go with Texas Tech.
Do they have the high-end guys?
I don't really think they do, to be completely honest with you. That's another team that is almost entirely transfers. And, like, are there good players? Yeah, but I don't think there's anyone who I go, oh, man, that's a tough one. That guy gets on the floor, watch out. Like, I don't see a lot of that, frankly. Yeah. Again, good guy, and they'll win plenty of games, but I don't think they are 7th in the league. I would have put them probably closer to 10th.
Yeah, I could see that as well. Again, McCaslin's a guy I really like. I think his system works. I think his system works without high-end talent, but this league's got a lot of dudes.
Yep.
And I think you're going to need some dudes to win enough games this year in the league. I wanted to get to this from yesterday. One last thought from Kelvin Sampson, coaches to speak. It was him, and then it was Bill Self, and that was the end of the coach press conferences. And a lot of questions directed to the coaches in their press conference availability had to do with the changing face of college basketball, NIL, transfer portal. Tony Bennett, a national championship head coach, just quit his job 3 weeks before the season. It's a changing model. It's a changing era. How do you handle it? And they asked Kelvin Sampson that question. And Kelvin Sampson, the first tell you, he's not a spring chicken. He, as he brought up, he coached in the Big 8. Like, he's been around a long, long time. But this was Kelvin Sampson's answer. It was the final minute of his answer, talking about how much different his job is and the challenges with his job. And I wanted you to hear this. So this is Kelvin Sampson from Big 12 Media Day.
I enjoy teaching. I enjoy coaching. I enjoy mentoring. I enjoy trying to make a difference in our kids' lives. I enjoy that. I refuse to let NIL or transfer portal penetrate my joy. I keep my joy. I still love doing that. I don't spend my time worrying about NIL. I'm not thinking about it. We deal with it, obviously. I think guys recruit other coaches, players, probably more than their own sometime. We're a living example of that. But all our kids came back, and I appreciate that. But our staff and our culture and our program have a lot to do with that. So NIL stuff is what it is. It is what it is. But my job has not changed because I will not let it.
I love that answer. I love that answer so much, Kelvin Sampson. My job's not different. I can complain. You can complain about NIL. You can complain about players getting paid. You can complain about, oh, I got to recruit my team. My guys are in the transfer portal. Kelvin Sampson says, I'm not worried about that. I got my whole team back. What am I worried about? This is not why I got into coaching. It is not the thing that I love about coaching. It is not the thing that I consume myself with as a coach. And I'm not going to let it be the thing that consumes me. And that stands in stark contrast to Tony Bennett quitting 3 weeks before the season that I felt it was worth pointing.
And screw his kids. I emphasize that, Spencer. It was just you and I at that point talking about that when the news broke that Bennett was leaving. But he screwed his kids over. Let's call it what it is. He screwed those kids who committed to him, who started the semester, and then he bailed out. So they get 30 days to transfer, but they don't really because they can't enroll anywhere.
And they'd have to wait. Like they're screwed because they'd have to wait till the end of the semester.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
I love the message. Yes, it's part of my job now in a way that it wasn't before, but it is not the job as I look at it.
Yeah, what is your job? That's the question for Kelvin Sampson and Bill Self, who had a similar-ish comment, or Jay Wright and Tony Bennett and Coach K and Roy and all the other guys and football coaches too who have wanted to bail out. What's your job? Is your job to coach basketball and mentor and help these guys become better basketball players and better adults, or is your job to negotiate contracts and you don't like that anymore? So seriously, what's your job? Because it's clear that the two of the three elder statesmen in the Big 12 think, well, our job's to coach basketball, and you live with it, and you make do. And for those other guys, it was being power hungry. That was their job. That was Tony Bennett's job. It was being power hungry. And he admitted as much by quitting 3 weeks before the season.
We got to get to what is wrong with you. That's coming up next here on 580 Sports Talk. What is wrong with you time on 580 Sports Talk? 2 new stories today competing with our new weekly champion, German cocaine pizza. I submitted this story in absentia and it won yesterday. The story in
Overwhelmingly.
Dusseldorf, Germany. One of their best-selling pizzas on the menu was a pizza that came with a side of cocaine. Number 40 on the menu. Jeffrey in the YouTube comments says, yeah, let me get the 40 with extra straws. That is really funny.
Oh my
also,
gosh.
they arrested the guy, and then when they released him from detention after a few days, reopened his business and continued selling the number 40.
Dude had product to move, man.
He really, really did. Anyhow, that's our current weekly champion. My story today takes us to Cedar Rapids, Iowa. 39-year-old Adam Sotzen, accused of driving to a woman's home and yelling at her over a prior dispute while destroying her property. He then allegedly removed a United States flag from a nearby home and turned it into a rope, which he then used to strangle the victim, allegedly repeatedly telling her, quote, "You need to die." The victim's boyfriend stepped in to free her before Sotzen attacked him and gave him a bloody lip. Police arrested Sotzen, charged him with multiple crimes, including assault with intent to inflict serious injury, harassment, and operating while under the influence.
Man,
I call it the Star Strangled banner.
Nice. I wish they had written fat lips so I could have made a Sum 41 joke. Alas. All right, my story, also a guy treating a woman terribly. That's an unfortunate theme for today's show. A Florida man's behind bars after he threw spaghetti at his wife. Police say that 40-year-old Markel Royal and his wife were arguing Sunday evening about his alcohol problem. Well, that's not great. And then it turned violent because Royal, who appeared to be intoxicated, became irate and threw a bowl of spaghetti at his wife of 9 years. It hit her in the front of her body on the stomach.
Jeez.
What else is on the front of the body? Upon arriving at the pair's Largo, Florida residence, officers found the victim covered in spaghetti sauce. He has, our guy Markel here has multiple previous arrests and has been charged with an enhanced felony battery count. Enhanced! Not great. He remains locked up.
Through spaghetti.
Yep.
That's
with the bowl. He didn't just push it at her. He threw the whole bowl at her.
I'm going to lean towards the American flag, the Star Strangled banner.
I agree.
But that doesn't beat German cocaine pizza.
No.
It's going to be really hard to beat German cocaine pizza.
Yeah,
I agree.
you should already stamp it as the weekly winner.
And I don't just mean this week. I think that might have staying power in the month of October. German cocaine pizza on What Is Wrong With You. Paul Myerberg of USA Today joins us for the Big 12 football breakdown next. Joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline, as he does every Thursday throughout the college football season, Paul Myerberg of USA Today. We call it the Big 12 Football Breakdown. Check out Paul's work covering the entirety of college football with America's newspaper, USA Today. And Paul, we'll start in state as we always do. K-State back-to-back road wins in prime time. And Avery Johnson, despite not running the ball at all, able to carve up West Virginia's defense. How impressed have you been with Avery's development as a passer to this point this season?
Yeah, I think there's been a week-to-week improvement. Not to say that it's been just a straight, skyrocket upwards, but you've seen noticeable improvement on a week-to-week basis. Certainly, if you go back to week 1 till week 8, the improvement is obvious. I think on Saturday night, we spoke about this a few times about winning games on the road, but for me, to win a game on the road, to play that way with your running game kind of out of whack or not working, I mean, that's just a big step in the development of a young guy. So Kansas State is hitting its groove right now, and it's easy to look at Johnson and say that he's the reason why, because the way that he's playing is showing you the potential that he has.
Over at Arrowhead Stadium on Saturday, Kansas got their first Big 12 win of the season, and they wrecked Houston, which from a talent perspective, that's what you would have expected to see. But of course, as we talked about last week, KU kind of had the burden of proof still going into that game. Well, they proved some things, and one guy who's gotten better the last few weeks appears to be their veteran quarterback, Jalen Daniels. Do you watch Daniels and see a guy who maybe is all the way back to some of the form that we've seen him at earlier in his career?
I don't know if he's all the way back, guys, but like Johnson, you're seeing steady improvement. And I think for Daniels, there's an aspect of shaking off some rust. There's an aspect of getting mentally fit and being mentally in shape for the rigors of Big 12 play. And look, last couple games, at least last 2, vastly improved. The team overall obviously made the most of that off week, came back with a renewed sense of purpose, and took care of business against an overmatched team. So look, I mean, we're going to talk about this matchup with Kansas State coming up, but Kansas played like the team that we thought that they were going to play like all season on Saturday. And that's a real positive sign. 6-6 feels like a bit of a pipe dream, but clearly that improvement with the time off and the way that they came back and didn't let up against Houston, that's a big step forward for this team. So yeah, Daniels is looking good, and KU overall couldn't ask for much more, I think, from that team heading into Kansas State week, because that's the kind of performance, like I said, we've been waiting for that breakthrough for weeks and weeks and weeks, and we finally saw it.
So moving to the Sunflower Showdown this Saturday in Manhattan, a game that Kansas State has won 15 consecutive times. It's a must-win for KU. They kind of all are. If they want to reach a bowl, they got to go at least 4-1 in their last 5. But again, haven't won this one in a decade and a half. When you look at this matchup, what's the biggest advantage that one team has over the other? What do you see as sort of the tipping point matchup or the tipping point advantage in this game between the Jayhawks and the Wildcats?
Yeah, and I think it's really simple here. It's the fact that Kansas State knows they can run on Kansas, because everyone has kind of run on Kansas. I mean, we're 2 weeks out, or rather 2 games out, 3 weeks out from them giving up 300 yards on the ground. So Kansas State looks at that film as a dual threat QB who I imagine they're going to get back more involved in the running game than they did the last weekend at West Virginia. So Kansas State, that's just an ultimate confidence boost. You look at that game on film that they had against Arizona State, and you think, okay, well, we can hammer them and we can brutalize them. And Kansas State's been doing that. I mean, not against West Virginia, but they have been physically and they have been controlling at the point of attack. So that's the obvious advantage. For KU, like, you cannot say that Kansas can't win this game, right? Because they should have won or could have won every game that they've played this season. So I don't want to look at the records and say that Kansas is overmatched. Kansas has a shot at this game, and I don't want to say as good a shot as they had in the last 15 years, but it's a pretty good shot. I really think they got a shot at it. But Kansas State is a team that can control the ball, can keep KU on the sideline, and then you get into the third and fourth quarter, Kansas State has the ability just to wear them down. So I like Kansas State in this game, but, KU really looked good against, albeit Houston. They looked really good. They looked like the team we expected. So I kind of think that that's going to carry over, and I don't think they're going to score the upset, but I think it's going to be a lot closer than maybe you might think based on the records and based on the way both teams have played the last month.
Paul Myerberg of USA Today is our guest here on the Big 12 Football Breakdown on 580 Sports Talk. One last question about the Sunflower Showdown. You sort of spoke to it. It's not impossible to see Kansas winning this game, but what does a KU win look like? What game script does the game have to follow for KU to win this game for the first time in 16 years?
Yeah, it's easy. It's offensive balance, and it's no turnovers. And that's it. I don't think Kansas State's defense is as good as it's been in the recent past. I think most people would agree with that. I think they're missing some star power, a couple playmakers. But for Kansas to get the better of this defense, they need to be more balanced than – look, they've been balanced all season. What they've been balancing is that they've been missing productivity through the passing game. So if they can continue to run for 160, 170 like they've done almost every single week, and then Daniels plays not a perfect game but an error-free football game, I mean, that's the key because – it's just basic stuff. I mean, Kansas, when they are working on offense and they don't trip over their own 2 feet, this is probably one of the best offenses in the conference. They can play at that level when they're motivated and they're looking, they're not making the mistakes that have crippled them at times in the 5-game losing streak. So Kansas is at a point, I think, where it's not complex. It's not going to be a terrific upset if they win this game. It's just going to take A- effort. And Kansas State's got to make a mistake. But KU's in that game because of that fact, because they know that it doesn't take perfection for them to beat Kansas State. It just takes them getting out of their own way. So I don't know what Leipold said in the week off. I don't know if it's going to carry over, but a veteran coach knows how to push the right buttons, and maybe he's got this team pointed in the right direction. But play safe, play careful, and have balance on both sides in terms of running and passing. And I think Kansas has that shot to win this game. No question about it. They got a shot to win the game.
Looking at the rest of the Big 12 conference, both of the conference frontrunners, BYU and Iowa State, survived scares at home with late touchdown drives and late scores to win. The final scores were even identical, 38-35 in both games, BYU over Oklahoma State and Iowa State over UCF. Is it more troubling that they struggled with some of the league's lesser lights, or are you more encouraged by the fact that even in a clunker, those teams could come out on top?
Okay, so I'm such a hypocrite, right? Like, I'm such a hypocrite because I look at BYU and I say, you guys should have lost that game. Because they really should have lost that game. And I look at that and I say, okay, because to be fair, I have not believed in BYU all season. I don't really buy into them even still. So I'm just a hypocrite because when I say that about BYU, and then I look at UCF against Iowa State, and I think about Iowa State, you have essentially 2 pick sixes, right? You have a situation where you are giving away the game, and then you still win it. And I think about all the teams that in the history of the BCS till now that have advanced, if not to the championship game, if not to the 14 playoff, but to a point of a major bowl, a New Year's Six bowl. Almost everybody has this game. I mean, Georgia had it this year against Kentucky, had it last year against Kentucky, 2 years ago against Kentucky. So, these games happen. And I look at Iowa State, and I'm so, amped up about their ability in the face of that adversity, giving away the game to come back and win it, that I look at the two teams differently. I know that's not fair, but I look at Iowa State's win, and I think this is the one that they could have gotten taken away from them, and they went out and took it back. And I look at BYU, and I think, man, you're just lucky. So make sense of that, if you will. I just left that game thinking Iowa State's a tough bunch of guys, mentally a tough team. Because I don't know how, if you're Rocco Beck and you make the mistakes that you made in that game, how you get the ball with that little time left on the clock and convert the way that you did. So I'm still more willing to buy into Iowa State. Though you got to admit, the scores are the same. The circumstances are basically the same. So just utter complete hypocrisy on my part.
No, I think I'm right there with you, Paul. I'm less sold on BYU after that performance. And Iowa State, I think a lot of how you view Iowa State might depend on how you view Rocco Becht, because I'm not sure, and Brendan and I were having this disagreement on the show earlier this week, I'm not sure Becht is an elevator as a quarterback yet. I think, he's only a sophomore. He's got time to grow and improve. But I look at that stat line and think, my God, 20 of 46 with 2 pick sixes. That's a guy who was lucky not to lose that game. But on the flip side, he did put together the game-winning drive and rush for the winning touchdown. So it is a bit of a Rorschach test right now with really both of those teams atop the league.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, if it's a quarterback game, you got to believe in Beck more than Retzlaff. And that's looking at him on Friday night and the mistakes that he makes on Friday night. Despite being able to pull it out, you still look at Beck and you think, if this is a quarterback-driven league, which it is to a degree, I mean, almost to an intense degree, if you look at the top teams in this conference, Shador, Avery Johnson, Beck, and so on, in a quarterback-driven league, in a game on the line where you need your quarterback to make plays, I don't look at BYU and think, okay, they can do this realistically in a make-or-break game against the best team in this conference. Against Kansas State in December, it's 31-26. You got the ball with 38 seconds left. I'm not buying BYU at all. That's a total sell. But Iowa State's shown that they can do it. And look, like Rocco Becht has got that Purdy DNA. I mean, Brock Purdy used to drive people nuts because he'd go 8 for 22 in the first half with 3 picks and then complete his next 17 and they win by 2 points. So he's got a little bit of that guy in him. I don't know how Matt Campbell handles that kind of stress, but it's something that they're able to live by, and I think they're willing to give Beck the chance to win the game in that situation. I don't know if BYU feels that comfort level. So that's one slight but noticeable difference, I think, between two teams that are 7-0 and two teams that can conceivably, at the very minimum, have the record to be in the playoff mix in early December. I think that's a splitting point for me, and that's why I believe in Iowa State, among a couple other reasons. That's why I believe in Iowa State more than BYU.
Paul Myerberg joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. This is the Big 12 football breakdown on 580 Sports Talk. Paul, as we dig into this week's schedule, as we all predicted back in August, the best matchup on paper in the standings in the Big 12 this week is Colorado hosting Cincinnati. The Buffs are 5-2. Cincinnati's off of a win as well last week. They moved to 5-2 after they beat Arizona State. Scott Satterfield and Deion Sanders are not the two coaches that I would pick among my favorites in the conference for a variety of reasons, but things are going in the right direction, undeniably, for both of those teams. How do you make this matchup, and do you think there is staying power in the Big 12 race for either the Bearcats or the Buffs?
Well, I think there is to a degree, but I do think this one is the separator. I think whoever wins this game is a more realistic. I mean, they're both contenders. One of them is a little bit more realistic than the other at 6-2 compared to 5-3. Credit to Cincinnati. We have dumped on Cincinnati almost since day one under Satterfield. They've improved. It's still a little bit smoke and mirrors-y for me to be really optimistic. I can't believe that we're going to say this because we're like 2 months away from throwing dirt on Colorado's grave. But they are actually a pretty solid football team. That's like as far as my brain is willing to let me go. But look what they did against Arizona. I mean, they play with an extreme sense of energy coming out of the gate in these games. And not to say that, I told you so, but I did think back in the day that when they got into the Big 12, it would be a different type of team and a different type of matchup that they could acclimate themselves to. And that's very clearly the case. I mean, they absolutely bulldozed Arizona and they bulldozed Central Florida. So I like Colorado to win this game. And yeah, I think Colorado at a minimum is at a point where we're going to be talking about them for something other than what they do on the field. And what's actually really funny is that the eyeballs on this team and the chatter about this team have dropped off the map on a national basis. There's just not that interest on a national basis in Colorado. Meanwhile, they're actually good. So figure that out for me. So I think Colorado wins this game, and this is great news for the Big 12 because I think if they're 6-2, they might not get into the top 25, but it's another team that someone like Kansas State or whomever down the line can point to and say to the playoff committee, we beat Colorado. They're 8-4. They were in the top 25. So what's good for Colorado is actually good for the Big 12, good for Kansas State down the line. So that's a real big positive to keep in mind.
One last Big 12 related question for you. West Virginia is at Arizona this Saturday. Two teams that would probably like a reset or a do-over if they could get one. West Virginia is really beat up. Arizona is too, especially on defense. But we've had plenty of talks and plenty of time to get our jokes off about Neil Brown. But is it possible it might get late early for Brent Brennan if it continues to look like this in Arizona?
I don't think it will. I think for a couple of reasons. One is that Brennan is an Arizona guy. I think there's an affection for the program. I think there are people within that program, within the Tucson, that really like him and have kind of, like when Rich Rod left, it was early for him, but there was still a lot of drumbeat for Brent Brennan to get that gig when he was early at San Jose State. So there's been I wouldn't say an open flirtation, but there's always been a connection between these two groups. So I don't think it's going to be like that for Brennan, but what have you done for me lately, right? I mean, he took over a team and a program that seemed on the rise. Clearly, this is not the same team. They're not the same effectiveness on offense. There's just something missing. But I do think that if they're 5-7 this year, it does change the dynamic for him in year 2 and year 3. I do think that they get to 6-6. It's just feels better. I know we both know that. It's just the way that it is in college football. But I don't think that he's in any danger right now, other than the idea of a little bit of discontentment going into next season. But again, like, I think there's an understanding within the athletic department, which is in shambles anyway, that, hey, we need to give this guy time because of immense roster turnover, because of the change in direction from a program on the rise to a new voice. The guy to watch out for, obviously, much more Neil Brown. I think Neil Brown and Dave Aranda right now are the Big 12 coaches that are most likely to lose their jobs. And for Brown, it seems very much like just a matter of time. I mean, conceivably and not likely, conceivably as soon as Sunday if they lose this game.
All right, Paul, let's get to it. Dumpster Juice pick of the week. Last week, got it right. USF did beat UAB. Somehow UAB covered the spread. That was shocking, to be completely honest with you. Couple of decent candidates for this week. I thought about going with the UTSA Tulsa game. I'm also not convinced that UMass will beat Wagner even at home. But we're going to go with the last kickoff of the day on the islands, Nevada at Hawaii. Second time we've included Hawaii this year. The problem with them, Paul, it's not even like they play fun football. Every Hawaii game sucks. Every single one of them is impossible to watch. They take on Nevada. Who you got?
Yeah, I mean, not to belabor it, you're absolutely right. One thing about Hawaii back in the day when we only got like 15 games on television in the span of a day. I know that sounds like a lot. It really wasn't a lot. So you tuned into Hawaii at 10:30, 11:30 at night. They used to be fun to watch. And they're boring now. And that breaks my heart because that was my sleepy time sound for a lot of years on Saturday night. I think it's Nevada. Nevada's like dramatically improved, much more competitive. They're going to go to the island and win this game. And God bless you, Timmy Chang. I mean, I watched so much Timmy Chang back in the day. I'm a huge fan of Timmy Chang, but they're boring. And that's the last thing you want to be in Hawaii when you're playing in like a 700 person attendance stadium and no one cares. You got to have fun. And they're just boring. That's sad. Thanks for putting me in a bad mood.
Paul, you never put us in a bad mood when we have you on. Paul Myerberg of USA Today joining us for the Big 12 football breakdown as he does every Thursday. Paul, enjoy the games this week. We'll talk to you next week.
Okay, thanks, guys. Talk to you next week.
That is Paul Myerberg. We'll come back and wrap up the 4 o'clock hour, 580 Sports Talk after this.
So we lost the camera on our video stream. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see me holding the camera up like right to my face. This is an uncomfortable angle. You can actually see me looking at the computer.
It's a picture of a picture of a picture
right now on the video. It's not ideal. Anyway, This is a very short segment because we got to get to the top of the hour. We got to get to the news break. We got to get to our 5 o'clock hour. It's just going to be me. Brendan's headed out for the Washburn Football Coaches Show, and Spencer's headed to Hummer Sports Park for high school football. So I've got you solo for the final hour. We'll have headlines. We'll talk to Mitch Holthus. We'll preview Thursday Night Football. Stay with us here on 580 Sports Talk, 580 WIBW. Let's get it. Final hour of 580 Sports Talk on this Thursday afternoon. Dan Lucero with you and flying solo the rest of the way on 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com. And on our YouTube stream, we lost the studio camera, but the control room camera is still holding strong. And thankfully, that's the only one we need for the remainder of today's program. Buys us a little time to repair the studio camera that did the Nestea plunge there before the final segment of the 4 o'clock hour. So we appreciate those of you joining us on the video stream. Again, our YouTube channel is 580 Sports Talk, and you can watch us on Facebook as well, WIBW News. Invite you to interact with us in the comments of the YouTube live chat or hit us up on the Top City Metal Supply text line. 785-272-9429 is that number. That is 785-272-9429. Mitch Holthus is going to join me in about 20 minutes or so. We'll get Mitch's thoughts on Raider Week, why it still resonates the way it does, even though the Raiders themselves do not resonate the way that they used to. And it is a bit of a revenge game as these things go for the Chiefs. We had a couple of commenters point that out on the YouTube live chat earlier today that, look, the Raiders are the last team to beat the Chiefs. As impressive as this collection of wins for the Chiefs has been since week 18 of last season through last year's playoffs in the Super Bowl and now the first 6 games of this season, the last loss was to the Raiders at home on Christmas. They were the Grinch. They ruined Christmas. So the Chiefs 0-1 for that. And they'll try and deal them that revenge as they head out to Vegas on Sunday afternoon. Game you'll hear right here on 580 WIBW, FM 104.9. Another 3 o'clock kick, which means another 2 o'clock pregame right here on the Sports Voice of Kansas, your home for Chiefs football. So Mitch will join us in about 20 minutes. We'll look ahead to some Thursday night football as well. There is Thursday night NFL football. There is Thursday night college football. We will touch on some of that as well. Plus your texts, your YouTube comments. We'll have a good time here this final hour of 580 Sports Talk. Again, getting you set tonight for high school football. It's the final week of the regular season in high school football across the state of Kansas, week number 8. Next week's games are win or go home. The playoff brackets will be set after tonight's action or tomorrow night's action. And so we've got week 8 football from Hummer Sports Park tonight. Meadowlark Conference action. Highland Park, first time we've gotten to see the Scots this year. They are 5-2. They take on Washington. The Wildcats are 6-1. Should be a good contest tonight. Spencer Dupuis is getting set up for that. He's on the play-by-play. I'll join him for analysis. And we hope you will join us tonight on 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, and online at 580WIBW.com. It is time for our 580 Sports Talk headlines. And earlier today, I was thinking that today felt like a bit of a slow news day, but in the last hour, a couple of stories have broken that we're going to get to here on 580 Sports Talk. This is just breaking news out of Tampa and an incredibly sad bit of news to pass along. The head coach of USF men's basketball, Amir Abdur-Rahim, has died. He was just 43 years old. He battled an aggressive illness and has passed away. And this is fairly sudden and unexpected news, obviously, with the start of the season for USF just a few days away. Abdur-Rahim last year guided the Bulls at UCF to the regular season conference championship in the American Athletic Conference. It was the first regular season conference title in school history. He accomplished that after a successful 3-year run at Kennesaw State and was hired to coach at USF in March of last year. And the Bulls went 25-8. They were ranked in the top 25 for the first time in program history. And it really appeared that Abdur-Rahim was one of the young rising stars in the coaching industry. But terribly sad news to report that he has died at the age of 43 after battling an illness. That news really just breaking in the last 15 to 20 minutes here. So details are obviously short, but prayers to the Abdur Rahim family. He was married. He had 3 children, just 43 years old. Terribly, terribly sad to report that. Our next story could also have been equally tragic. This is a scary story coming out of Denver involving Broncos wide receiver Josh Reynolds, who was shot early Friday morning after they were followed home from a Denver nightclub. Shortly after 3 a.m., someone called 911 about a shooting, and the caller reported that they were driving and said they had been shot and that 2 of his friends had also been shot. And among the victims, among 3 victims, was Josh Reynolds, the veteran wide receiver, formerly of the Detroit Lions, spending his first year this year with the Broncos, who, according to court documents, was shot once in his left arm and once in the back of his head. Another man was shot in his back, and a third victim was wounded by shattered glass. And prior to the shooting, the victims reported they were at Shotgun Willie's, which is what it sounds like. That is a certain kind of nightclub in the Denver area, kind of an infamous one in sports circles in recent years. If you remember when Ja Morant got in trouble for that Instagram Live video where he had a gun out and was waving it around on Instagram Live, and appeared to be in a club waving a gun around. Yeah, that was at Shotgun Willie's too. Maybe taking the name of the club a bit too literally there, but apparently, Reynolds and his 2 friends were followed home or followed from the club and attacked. And, of course, for the Broncos in their franchise history, it's an uncomfortably close story to the tragic death of Darren Williams, who died on New Year's Day of 2008, I believe it was, after he was his limo was fired upon when he was leaving a Denver nightclub, a different club, and he was tragically killed. He was shot and killed that night, and ended a very promising career of the former Oklahoma State Cowboy and young defensive back Darren Williams. So it's a awful history that the Broncos have in that regard, and fortunately, it sounds like Josh Reynolds will be able to recover. The Broncos releasing a statement saying that he was a victim of a shooting last Friday in Denver and received treatment for minor injuries. Out of respect for the legal process, we will defer further comment on this matter to the authorities. Reynolds is currently on injured reserve anyway due to a broken finger. He was not with the team Thursday night. Obviously, the incident occurring in the wee hours of Friday morning, so we can assume he was out Thursday night. He was not with the team, not playing when they traveled to New Orleans to take on the Saints that night. So, yeah, scary ordeal there, and certainly hope for the best for Josh Reynolds. Thankfully, that is not a story with a more tragic denouement there. Anyway, those are breaking stories really within the last hour or so that we thought we'd get to at the top of the 5 o'clock hour here in our 580 Sports Talk headlines. Now we'll get to some other stories, and we'll get to the Kansas City Chiefs and their participation report for today as they prepare again to take on the Las Vegas Raiders this Sunday. Earlier today, the Chiefs obviously made the DeAndre Hopkins trade official. They needed to clear a 53-man roster spot. They did so by placing Sky Moore on injured reserve with a core muscle injury. Very vague description of the injury, but Andy Reid described it as something that needed to be, I think he said, cleaned up or fixed or something along those lines. So could be a while before we see Sky Moore again. Then again, would we even notice? And given that he had, again, as many catches as you and me for the Kansas City Chiefs this year. As far as the participation report of active 53-man roster players today, for the second straight day, Mike Dana and Juju Smith-Schuster did not practice. Dana dealing with that pectoral injury that kept him out last week. Smith-Schuster dealing with the hamstring injury that he's already been ruled out for Sunday against the Raiders, if not officially, then unofficially by head coach Andy Reid. Everybody else, a full participant today. That includes Kareem Hunt, who is limited with a hip on Wednesday. That could be a partial veteran rest there as well. But Kareem Hunt was a full participant today. as were for the second straight day linebacker Leo Chanel, wide receiver McCole Hardman, defensive back Jaden Hicks, defensive tackle Derek Nottie, and tight end Jared Wiley, all of whom are listed with various maladies. Justin Reed was listed yesterday with a hand injury, a full participant, but has been taken off of the participation report. His injury no longer deemed serious enough for inclusion. So that's what we know about the Chiefs and their participation report. We do not yet have the Raiders participation report. Can tell you that starting tackle Colton Miller didn't practice on Wednesday. Neither did guard Dylan Parham. Harrison Bryant, backup tight end, didn't practice. Linebackers Tommy Eichenberg and Kenai Mauga were limited. So was Jacoby Myers. So was defensive tackle Adam Butler. Max Crosby, Gardner Minshew, Jacorian Bennett were full participants on Wednesday. Again, we have not yet seen the Thursday practice report for the Raiders. This, however, is something that none of us have ever seen on one of the participation practice reports. We've seen, if you look at them on a daily, weekly basis, sometimes when a player practices or is limited or doesn't practice and it has nothing to do with an injury, the designation is NIR, non-injury related. And that can cover a lot of things. That can cover personal reasons. Maybe you had to be away from the team dealing with a personal matter. Maybe you're having to deal with a rest day, perhaps. So you would see NIR veteran rest. That's not an uncommon thing to see for some older players. Non-injury related absences. I'd never seen NIR jury duty before until yesterday. Dallas Cowboys kicker Brandon Aubrey was not at Wednesday's practice because he had jury duty. Now, this is the part where I probably jinx myself, and I hope I am not jinxing myself. But this is the part where I tell you, I have never had jury duty. I've never been called even for jury duty, which again, let's knock on wood in that regard that doesn't happen anytime soon. But I moved around a lot, and it just hasn't happened. I've never been on the juror rolls, so I've never been called for jury duty. Brandon Aubrey got called for jury duty and was selected as a juror for a felony case. So he got seated. I could see the thought process for Brandon Aubrey. Man, I got jury duty. Well, that's not great, but you know what? I get out of practice for a day. That sounds like a good excuse to I'll get a vet rest day of my own. I'll get a day off of practice. All I got to do is go sit. They're not going to pick me. Even if they do, it's not going to be a big deal. I'll perform my civic duty. The reporting out of Dallas was that the Cowboys offered to get Aubrey out of this, and Aubrey insisted on performing his civic duty, which is again to say he really wanted that extra day off. Well, joke's on you, pal. Now you're on the jury on a felony case. So he's going to have to serve on that jury. Now, it is not the kind of felony case that sequesters the jury. So he has nights and weekends free, which for a football player, convenient. And what it sounds like is he is going to go through some workouts in the evening as he is able today and tomorrow, and then will be able to travel on Saturday to San Francisco for their game against the 49ers. But it is a Sunday night game, and would assume that they'll get on a flight right after, and they'll arrive in Dallas early Monday morning, and then he might have to go back and keep on performing that civic duty. So Bears watching, I don't think it's going to affect Brandon Aubrey's performance. He's one of the best kickers in football. But I just love the idea of the thought process of, you know what? I'm going to get out of work for a day. I'll sit on the jury. Sure. That ain't no big deal. What am I going to hear? Traffic ticket? Something like that? Petty theft? No, brother. Felony. At least it wasn't something they had to sequester him for. Then I think the NFL or the Cowboys probably would have been able to intervene and recuse their kicker, but not the case here. Anyway, that's one of the more amusing stories from the From the 785 on the Top Emails Fly text line, somebody says they are going to call Shawnee County and get me assigned jury duty for saying that. I don't appreciate that. Please do not do that. Please don't narc on me. I would perform my civic duty if asked. I would see what I could do about getting out of it. But if I couldn't get out of it, I'd go do it. I'm not opposed to performing my civic duty and sitting in the jury pool. But I've never done it before. It's just one of those things that I've never been called. Just one of those things, I suppose. Anyhow, a couple more headlines for you here on 580 Sports Talk. And I think this is an interesting sort of juxtaposition, these two headlines. Tua Tagovailoa has returned to practice for the Miami Dolphins. And he was back at practice yesterday, first time since sustaining a concussion in Miami's game on September 12th. He has missed the previous 4 games, being placed on injured reserve. He is eligible to come off of IR this week. The practice window has been opened. And there are some quotes in this story from ESPN.com. Tyreek Hill delighted naturally. I mean, did you see his stat line last week? You see the clown throwing him the football the last couple of weeks, and Tyler Huntley and Tim Boyle. Tim Boyle on 4th in the ball game threw the ball out of bounds. That's what the Dolphins have been dealing with. So it's no wonder that Tyreek Hill has this to say. He looked great, felt like old times. Me and him connected on a few deep shots today, and that kind of got me feeling good today. I missed that, and I missed him. I told him I've got to take him and his wife for dinner because I missed him so much. Expletive was so beautiful. That expletive almost made me cry today. Like just having him in the lineup, having him call the plays, having him direct the offense, like just hearing his voice. It was beautiful. It was so beautiful. End quote. Yeah, I bet you are happy to have a guy who can get you the ball back in the huddle. Now, there was a lot of conversation, a lot of debate, a lot of consternation regarding Tua's return to the field. But he is an adult, and he's got to make an adult decision. And there's nothing that I can say behind a microphone or nothing that any ESPN pundit can say behind their much more broadly disseminated microphones. There's nothing anybody can say to Tua Tagovailoa to get him to shut it down if he doesn't want to shut it down. It might be what's quote-unquote best for him, but we don't get to make those decisions for other grown men. On the flip side of that story is North Carolina State quarterback Grayson McCall, who last night on his social media announced that he was retiring from football after his latest head injury. He posted on his Instagram, "I have battled injuries my whole career, but this is one that I cannot come back from. Brain specialists, my family, and I have come to the conclusion that it is in my best interest to hang the cleats up." He took a hit to the head against Wake Forest back on October 5th. He also suffered a serious concussion last year while he was playing for Coastal Carolina. If you remember Grayson McCall at all, it's probably as the Coastal Carolina quarterback. They were one of the really fun teams in the COVID season of 2020, and he had a terrific year. Unfortunately, dealt with an injury, and then dealt with the head injuries the last 2 years, and those are going to bring his career to an end. He also wrote on Instagram, "As I feel like my whole world is being taken from me, I feel some sense of contentment. Every time my feet hit the grass, I left every single ounce of myself on that field. I always played my hardest and to the best of my ability because I never knew which play would be my last. I have no regrets throughout my career, and that is something I can be proud of." All the best to Grayson McCall, who himself made an adult decision, a very different one than the decision that Tua Tagovailoa has made. But there's no one size fits all here. It's not that simple, and you have to let adults make adult decisions. That's going to do it for 580 Sports Talk. We will step aside for a timeout. When we come back, we'll be joined by the great Mitch Holthus, the voice of the Chiefs. That's next on 580 Sports Talk. 528 on 580 Sports Talk, and it is that time of the week on this Thursday where we are joined by the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs, Mitch Holthus, whose appearances are brought to you by Hy-Vee and by Azura Credit Union. Contact Crystal Rippey, Kirsten McCall, or Kristen Ambergy about the credit union advantage in getting your first or next home loan. And Mitch joins us. And Mitch, another successful business trip for the Kansas City Chiefs. They go to 6-0. And what was the most impressive thing to you about that 28-18 win over the San Francisco 49ers?
Being 4 of 5 in the red zone, 4 touchdowns. I don't care how they got them, all running. That's great because the Chiefs have been 28th in the league in red zone touchdown efficiency. And then the 3 takeaways to go into that game at -4 with only 4 takeaways, to get 3 interceptions and 2 from rookies. And you're intercepting Brock Purdy. You're not intercepting some rookie quarterback. So to me, that was the biggest takeaway coming out of the San Francisco game. And by the way, a shout out. I work really closely with a guy named Lucas Boyd, who is one of the top Seaman soccer players of all time.
Okay.
He should have kicked for the football team, but he's excited about Viking football coming up. So he works for the Chiefs, and just a great dude.
He should be excited. He should listen Friday night to 580 WIBW because we'll have Siemens' regular season finale against DeSoto, where I believe they are looking for their first outright conference championship in football since 1993.
Goodness sakes, you're kidding. And it's in the UKL or whatever that is.
The UKC, yes. 2003, okay. I'm sorry. Not quite that long ago, but yeah, 2003, 21 years.
Still.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking 21 seasons or 22 seasons, 21 years.
Yeah.
Oh man, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, so you tell Lucas and any other proud Viking to tune in Friday night.
Well, his wife was Cass Henry, one of the top point guards in Seaman history. So they should be excited that they have a chance to get a conference championship in the United Kansas Conference for the first time in 21 seasons. That's cool.
Yeah, he's
an incredibly talented young guy and works for our 65 TPT team and just does an amazing job. But their win, did they beat Baser Linwood last week?
Yes, they did.
Yeah, that's a heck of a win.
Yeah,
so,
that was big time.
Yeah.
So
anyway, it's a good time to be a Seaman Viking fan.
It most certainly is. And it's a good time to be a Chiefs fan because you know what else is cool? DeAndre Hopkins is a Kansas City Chief. He arrived today and went through his first workout. And Andy Reid said as much in his availability today that there's a lot of things that he does well, obviously, 3-time All-Pro. And there are a lot of things that he does that are similar in terms of his skill set to a player like Rashee Rice, who's no longer available to the Chiefs this season due to his injury. But what are you most interested in seeing what Hopkins can provide to this team and how he can work within the offense and with a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes?
Well, let's just put it out there. And I talked to him today, had a chance to visit with him with D-Hop. He's going to play on Sunday. And how many snaps, I'm not entirely sure. How many plays can they have literally or realistically dialed up for him? But he's going to play. He's going to wear number 8 and, let him rip a little bit. What he will do for this team, in my opinion, or the realistic expectations short term, is what he brings to the table is catch radius and his catch ratio, meaning his career, he has been 60 to 64% on catches to targets throughout his career, and that's with a high volume of targets. And that will be a welcome sign for Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid and Matt Nagy in this offense. He's strong, big hands, and you can tight window throws. First down chain mover, he'll pop a big play. The difference between D-Hop now, because you got to remember he's in his 12th season, and Rashee Rice is the speed to run away from somebody. This game we played last year against the Raiders was actually the coming out party for Rashee Rice, and he had a 29-yarder where he hit the edge and just burned it right off the edge and came up the sideline. I can still see that play. Well, that's not going to be D-Hop. That's not going to be his thing now, but Hopkins will help the Chiefs win football games by what he brings with tough catches, chain mover catches, tough hands, catch radius, catch ratio.
There's probably not one answer to this question, but which Chief or Chiefs do you think will benefit the most from Hopkins' presence on the field?
There are two, and it's tied. It's Travis Kelce. Now, that's where the Rashee-Rice comparison can come into play here, because D-Hop can work the middle of the field. He can work attention away from Kelce. If you're going to give complete double coverage or 1.5 coverage to Kelce, you're going to be in peril of just D-Hop getting 10 catches for about, $110 on you, and just you can't get the Chiefs off the field. The other guy who will benefit will be Xavier Worthy, and not so much from a physical standpoint of getting him open because you have D-Hop on the field, although that'll be some of that. It's the mental and kind of the emotional pressure that you can take, where Xavier Worthy does not have to go into every game now in his rookie year thinking, God, I've got to get 8 catches and I've got to make big plays. You can go back to a little bit of his role he had when we had a healthy Rashee-Rice, and even before that in camp when we had Hollywood Brown, where Xavier Worthy's production and plays, and some big plays, 54-yarder against the Chargers comes to mind, is a luxury. You want it back to that and just let him play loose and free and not feeling the pressure he's got to be the bell cow.
Mitch Holthus, the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs, is our guest here on 580 Sports Talk, joining us a courtesy of our friends at Azura Credit Union and Hy-Vee. Mitch, it's Raider Week, and I know that Raider Week still resonates, and it still means something, even though the Raiders themselves maybe don't mean what they once meant to the NFL as a franchise. Raider Week is always going to be Raider Week. Why is it that even though it's been 20 years since the Raiders were a consistent threat in the AFC, they still represent what they represent? Because, look, I grew up in the Denver area, and Raider Week still means something in Denver, too. And it really means something in Kansas City. Those old AFL rivalries, how is it that they still resonate all these years later, even when the landscape of the league has changed and the Raiders are just different than what they used to be?
Well, it's part of, I remember I just had this discussion with Steve Spagnuolo today about when Lamar Hunt was adamant about keeping the old AFL basically together. We've had that discussion with you in the division setup when it changed dramatically, really, when Houston came into the league in 2002. All right, that being said, you kept those rivalries together, and this goes all the way back to the AFL days, as you alluded to. But if you want to heat it up recently, that's the last team that beat the Chiefs. Kansas City's won 12 games in a row, and that goes back to that Christmas Day game where Max Crosby and Malcolm Kuntz in that game just wrecked the party. They had 2 defensive touchdowns in a span of 9 seconds. The Raiders did not complete a pass in the second half, 0 pass completions in an NFL half, and still beat the Chiefs 20-14. That'll get your attention. The bus driver, let's go around the stadium Gruden game, gets your attention. The 2017, Marcus Peters is on the BART with beast mode and, yelling out expletive the Chiefs. 2014, or that play in 2017 was they get do-overs like 5 times to win the game.
Right.
You can remember these games. I can. It's like in 2014 was the Eric Berry cancer game. Now, these games mean a lot. And then, when you think, well, maybe it's docile on their end, Jack Jones comes out today. He picked 6 Mahomes last year, remember, part of that 2 touchdowns in 9 seconds. And he's like, we don't fear Patrick Mahomes. You got the dude from Air Force doing the Kermit the Frog during training camp. So it's on. We're going out there to play and get after them.
What is the most important advantage that the Chiefs have in this game? Because obviously, like they're Vegas themselves says they're 9.5-point favorites, and the friends in the desert and all of that. And certainly, you look on paper and you see a Chiefs team that is 6-0, and a Raiders team that's played musical chairs at quarterback and has dealt with some injuries. They've lost Christian Wilkins, their big offseason acquisition on the defensive line, but they still have some impactful defensive players like Max Crosby, most importantly of all, and still have that edge, that attitude that Antonio Pierce has tried to bring to this team. Where do you see the advantage that the Chiefs have to press if they're going to get their lick back, as the kids say, from Christmas?
Well, I would say the fact that you can be aggressive against a team that has 16 giveaways. Now, I'm not going to be one to laugh at Minshew, okay? I'm not going to laugh at Gardner Minshew and the mustache and all that, because he was in the Pro Bowl last year with the Colts. He threw for 3,300 yards, and they beat Baltimore this year. Baltimore, if they don't give the ball away, they're not 2-5, but they just have hemorrhaged turnovers. But this is a Chiefs team now, and once you start to get turnovers, you kind of get the sense. And so the fact that they can force turnovers, the Chiefs defense, by getting after Minshew and the guys that will touch the ball for the Raiders, I think is the biggest advantage the Chiefs have. And then to decimate field position, just decimate it, flip the field every time. When the Chiefs were in 2019, I remember even early on with Coach Reed, when we started 9-0 in his first year, we were just if you made a colored graph on your laptop of the field, it was just painted red within seconds. And you can dominate this team on special teams. Carlson's good as a kicker, but the rest of them, man, they're struggling. The return game is struggling, and they've given up 3 non-offensive touchdowns. They've got 2 scoop and score, and pick six and 2 scoop and scores. So ball security is not exactly their thing. Now the Chiefs, I can't cast aspersions when Pat's sitting on 8 interceptions. We're still -3, but the pressure, the unusual pressure, the Chiefs have just got to take the edge in the fight to the Raiders, because it was just the converse of that on Christmas last year.
All right, Mitch, bring us home with a nugget of the night for this one. I know there's always good nuggets when it's Raider week.
Oh, yeah, I got a real good one for you. Doesn't necessarily deal with the Raiders, but it deals with the Chiefs. We were talking turnovers here. All right, think about the Chiefs, 6-0, last unbeaten team in the NFL, and they have 10 giveaways with a 6-0 record. That usually, I don't care if you're Seaman or Silver Lake or anybody, that usually doesn't match up. You agree, right?
Yes.
All right. It is the Chiefs are the 8th team since 2001. So we're talking 23 years, but 24 seasons to start 6-0 and have 10 plus giveaways. It's actually happened 7 prior times. How many of those 7, again, with 10 plus giveaways, 10 or more giveaways, and started 6-0, how many of those 7 made the Super Bowl?
I'm going to guess none of them.
All 7.
Oh, how about that?
Think of that. I'm like, what? I went back, I looked at it, I'm like, I got to double check this one. And 3 of the 7 won it. The 2015 Broncos, the 2004 Patriots, and the 2009 Saints.
Wow.
Which tells you about the defensive prowess of those 3 teams.
It does.
They all had quarterbacks. They had quarterbacks, but I mean, Manning was really bad that year. But they were also on defense. Breeze was okay, but the Saints defense was way underrated. The same with the 04 Patriot defense. But I found that captivating, that 10 plus giveaways, 6-0, and every team that did it, the 7 previous in a quarter century, all made the Super Bowl.
I guess it goes to show you, if you can overcome shooting yourself in the foot, what happens when you stop doing that generally ends up being pretty good. And you can,
right.
And
I think that's the case.
And you could count on Drew Brees and Tom Brady, and eventually it took till the playoffs, but you could count on Peyton Manning not to give the ball to the other team. And I think you can count on Patrick Mahomes not doing that over the long haul too.
Yeah, but I wouldn't try it if I'm a football team. I don't think I would give, we're talking about Seaman. Coach Swaffer's going, hey, don't cover your ears. Because it's like, I could hear kids playing. Mitch said you can go, be 10 plus giveaways and go 6-0 and go to the Super Bowl. No, ball security is a big deal.
Yeah.
So kids out there, do your homework, get some good sleep, and don't turn the ball over.
Mitch Holthus, the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs, joins us every Thursday here on 580 Sports Talk. Again, thanks to our sponsors, Hy-Vee and Azura Credit Union. Mitch, have a great trip to Las Vegas and bring back another victory if you can.
You got it, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you. That is Mitch Holthus. We'll take a break. We'll come back with more here on 580 Sports Talk. It's 5:46 here on 580 Sports Talk. Dan Lucero flying it solo for the remainder of the show. Again, we got high school football coming up tonight here on 580 WIBW and FM 104.9. 580 Preps Thursday Night Football presented by Lewis Toyota. It's the regular season finale for the Highland Park Scots. Having another nice year, 5-2 on the campaign, taking on the Washington Wildcats, who are 6-1. Spencer Dupuis is standing by. He is at Hummer Sports Park. I will be joining him shortly, and we'll have the coverage tonight here on the Sports Voice of Kansas. There's other football tonight as well. You got the Vikings and the Rams on Thursday Night Football kicking off week number 8 of the NFL season, according to our friends at Prairie Band Sportsbook. The Vikings are 3-point road favorites, minus 148 on the money line. The total is 47.5. The Rams have activated Puka Nacua. There's a chance that he could play tonight. He has missed the last 5 games with a injury, a PCL sprain, but he may go tonight. Obviously, a lot surrounding the Rams this week, in particular, the reports that they were calling teams, gauging the interest on Cooper Kupp, reports that they engaged the Chiefs in discussions about Cooper Kupp, but that the price was steeper than the Chiefs were willing to pay for the privilege of having the former Super Bowl MVP. Minnesota's 5-1, and I still don't think anybody really believes in them. It's strictly Sam Darnold. Like, it's two things for me. One, it's Darnold. I don't think Sam Darnold is all of a sudden a top-tier NFL quarterback. I think at some point, water's going to find its level with regards to Sam Darnold. And the other thing is, outside of Justin Jefferson, they just don't have a lot of, like, dudes. Even on defense, it's a mostly anonymous defense. It's not, they don't have superstars on the defensive side of the field. So I have concerns about a relative lack of dudes. It does sound like they might get TJ Hawkinson back soon. That'll help their passing game quite a bit, but I'm just not all the way there with the Vikings yet. I'm gonna need more convincing. But I do think they'll probably beat the Rams tonight. I think the Rams are too beat up, and I don't see it for the Rams. I think they're on the verge of packing up ship and starting to think about 2025 and beyond. It's what it feels like internally. If they're calling about their guys and thinking about making trades, that suggests to me that they're on the verge of calling it a year. And I think they may end up doing that at the end. So I think the Vikings do win tonight. I think they probably cover that 3. I don't know about the total. I don't love the 47.5 there. I might go the under on that total. 2 college football games tonight to tell you about if you'd rather watch some college football. Kicking off in about 10 minutes, Georgia Southern and Old Dominion. What do you know about those teams? If the answer is anything, then you know more about them than I do, I have to say. I'm not really up on the Monarchs and the Eagles this year. Georgia Southern's 5-2, unbeaten in the Sun Belt. Old Dominion is 3-4. Game is at Old Dominion. Prairie Band Sportsbook makes the visiting Eagles a 1-point favorite with the total set at 52. And you got some ACC football tonight. Syracuse at Pitt. That's unbeaten Pitt. That's number 19 in the country, Pitt. They are favored, according to Prairie Band, by 5 points tonight. The total on that game, 62.5. I like Syracuse in that one, and I might even consider a money line bet on Syracuse. Prairie Band has them plus 170 on the money line. I'm not buying Pitt. Like I don't believe in them. I know they're 6-0. I don't believe in them. I don't believe in Pat Narduzzi. I think that Syracuse has the better quarterback in the game. I don't think that Acrisure Stadium on a Thursday night is the most intimidating venue you can go to in college football. Thursday night games notoriously tricky and unpredictable. And honestly, the best move is probably keep your wallet in your pocket with these games. But the one I like the best might be a little sprinkle on the Syracuse money line. I think Kyle McCord's the best quarterback in the game. And I'll take the better quarterback. Syracuse 5-1. They're a good football team. I think they're going to beat Pitt tonight. That is my Thursday night football prediction for you tonight. Give me, I don't know enough about the Sun Belt game. I'll take the home team. When in doubt, take the home team. So I'm in doubt there. Give me Old Dominion. Give me Syracuse, and give me the Vikings on Thursday night football. Hopefully, it's a good enough game. Al Michaels doesn't start nodding off midway through the third quarter. Give him and Kirk something to enjoy. Before I take a break, a quick question from Vance in the YouTube live chat. Appreciate those of you hanging out with me on the YouTube. 580 Sports Talk is the channel. Vance asked if it's for sure that Tua Tagovailoa will play on Sunday. I would say it is far from a sure thing that he will go. I am also, in one of my leagues, a Tyreek Hill fantasy owner, and you can't bench him. He's too good to bench, but he's been very hard to play with the cavalcade of bums throwing him the ball. So not certain at this point. I think you're going to have to wait another day or so, monitor the transaction wire, Vance, to figure out whether Tua is going to play for the Dolphins on Sunday or not. One final break, and then we'll do a final word here on 580 Sports Talk on this Thursday. Wrapping up, walking off the final word here on 580 Sports Talk. I'll do a quick two-part final word today. One part of it will be a little more self-indulgent than the other. First part of my final word is this. DeAndre Hopkins helps everybody for the Kansas City Chiefs. You heard Mitch Holthus just a little bit ago talk about Travis Kelce and Xavier Worthy specifically, and how much Hopkins' presence on the field is going to help those two targets. A little bit of gravity towards Hopkins means a little bit less towards the rookie wide receiver, and of course towards Kelce, which will help him continue to grow his contributions. But I think it helps everybody who's on the field with Hopkins, and I think it helps Patrick Mahomes. I think it elevates Mahomes. I think that Mahomes has shown that he can elevate a group of wide receivers that is not particularly stellar. And now it's time for a 3-time All-Pro to come in and help elevate Patrick Mahomes a little bit. And if Mahomes is elevated and Mahomes is back to MVP form, then I don't know what you do with this Chiefs team. I don't know how you're going to beat them if the offense rises to the level that we have seen the defense rise to on a week in, week out basis. And I think that's a lot more realistic now that DeAndre Hopkins is a Chief. All right, the self-indulgent part. The NBA season is underway, and the Denver Nuggets play their first game tonight. They play the Oklahoma City Thunder. It is on TNT if any of you are interested in watching a little Thursday night basketball. Longtime listeners will be aware I am a Denver Nuggets fan, lifelong. Last year was tough. Last year, defending the championship, losing in Game 7 at home to the Timberwolves in round 2, that was tough. I'm here to tell you right now, Nikola Jokic is still Nikola Jokic, and you doubt the Nuggets at your own peril. I know everybody wants to look at the new shiny thing. You know, Oklahoma City's young and they're really talented, and Anthony Edwards in Minnesota and all this. Nikola Jokic is still Nikola Jokic. And as long as that's the case, the Nuggets are a threat. And I think they're going to win the championship. And I don't care if you think I'm wrong. I think they're going to win it all this year. And I think Christian Brown's going to have a really good year, too. High school football coming up at 7. Overtime coming up after this. For Brendan and Spencer, I'm Dan. This is 580 Sports Talk.